Chapter 1932. Too terrifying. Is he still human? Niu Ben's deity trembled in fear, flickering between light and darkness, as if it was about to collapse. With a whoosh, it shrunk to the back of Decimating Abyss's neck, clinging onto strands of vine-like golden hair, hiding in the bush-like hair on his head. Meanwhile, Decimating Abyss's cold and indifferent eyes that seemed to hang high in the sky finally had a trace of ripple. Fear and shock emerged, and he asked involuntarily, "Jiang, what kind of heavenly technique is this? It can actually block a strike from my gold true dragon halberd, and even the laws of the true dragon can't harm you in the slightest?" Wudong Sek's bone-melting soft palm, plus Shaolin Temple's Vajra shield and iron mantle. Jiang Tian casually spouted nonsense. If Jiang Tian's original body was here, he definitely wouldn't reveal even the slightest trace of Earth's civilization. However, Jiang Tian's original body was not Jiang Tian's original body after all. The Jiang Tian that represented his past, the Jiang Tian that had passed away in the river of time, was an external incarnation formed from the evil thoughts and negative emotions in his heart. Therefore, he acted according to his heart, only relying on his likes and dislikes, extremely unbridled and full of destruction. Pretending to be mysterious. What bullshit, Vajra shield and iron mantle, see how I kill you? Decimating Abyss roared furiously. The bloodline of the true dragon activated, and the laws of the true dragon halberd gushed out endlessly like a surging river, madly pouring into the gold true dragon halberd. Rumble. On the halberd, the huge scales released a brilliant light, and waves of dragon roars resounded through the sky, as if a pure-blooded true dragon was awakening. The patterns of the great Tao appeared, and the patterns of the laws even surged like a tide, setting off huge waves, suppressing the laws and great Taos of this land to the point of shattering inch by inch. Laws of the true dragon. One could only see that the laws of the true dragon condensed into a solid form, turning into dragon scales, and quickly condensing into numerous phantoms of true dragons. There were over 1,000 of them, and every single one of them could crush the heavens, as if they possessed infinite weight, causing the space to explode. I definitely can't die the moment I come into being. I can't even be defeated, ruining the reputation I've accumulated for tens of thousands of years. After fighting to this extent, Decimating Abyss finally revealed his trump card. Roar. Countless true dragon laws charged towards Jiang Tian along with his halberd, carrying a ferocious and terrifying pressure. You should be honored to become a stepping stone for me to come out of seclusion and show off my might. Decimating Abyss's gaze was cold, filled with killing intent and boundless decisiveness. Boom. Suddenly, passing self Jiang Tian burst out with bright chaotic light. This primal chaos light was sometimes dim and incomparably deep, and sometimes all-encompassing and colorful. It couldn't be described with words. If one were to use their powerful divine sense to observe carefully, they would see that each speck of light was like a dazzling planet. As they flowed, they seemed to be able to open up a new world. Jiang Tian punched out. His movements seemed slow but were actually fast. However, it was so terrifying that it caused the souls of the dead to tremble. It was like this vast continent was about to be smashed apart by his fist. This vast world was about to collapse. Is this fist art really from the Nine Heavens immortal realm? Suddenly, Decimating Abyss was shocked. Jiang Tian's chaotic divine body was perfect and flawless. Chaotic aura coiled around every move he made. His powerful divine laws were vast and unstoppable, destroying everything in its path. Nothing could stop him. Bang, bang, bang. Rumble. The chaotic light and aura contained divine laws. They collided with the true dragon laws, and emitted the sound of metal colliding. It was like a great bell colliding. Under everyone's shocked gazes, not only did the true dragon laws fail to penetrate the chaotic aura and light, they were instead suppressed by the chaotic aura and crushed by the divine laws. It's useless. If an adult true dragon was here, I might have to deal with it carefully. However, what you're holding is only a divine weapon refined from the remains of a true dragon. It's not even comparable to a single strand of my hair. Roar. Jiang Tian laughed madly as he struck out in all directions. Under the illumination of the dazzling divine disk, he was like a great sun that streaked across the horizon and roamed the sea of stars. He was like flowing water, arriving at any place he wished. Within his ferocious and domineering attacks, there were traces of an unrestrained and otherworldly aura. Every move he made shook the heavens and the earth. He possessed inconceivable power. Every punch and palm shattered everything, destroying everything in its path. Too powerful. This Mr. Jiang, not to mention in the Eastern Empire, even in the entire continent, it's probably hard to find an opponent. Everyone was dumbfounded. Even Elder Gu, this kind of living fossil, had never seen such a terrifying fist art. Such an exciting battle. Decimating Abyss even had the misconception that he was facing an innate divine spirit. The true dragon laws that Decimating Abyss evolved were shattered one by Jiang Tian's attacks. They were completely unable to trap this wandering cultivator from outside the river that he viewed as an ant. Bang! Jiang Tian's thick black hair fluttered in the wind. His clothes fluttered like a flag in the astral wind. Each of his punches was heavier than the previous one, causing the entire continent to shatter continuously. Finally, there was a huge collapse that extended for tens of thousands of miles. Many huge cities were shaking and the mountains were shaking. Boom! In just a few flicks of the fingers, countless true dragon laws had all collapsed. It could even be said that in this area of 100 Flowers Peak, everything within 1,000 miles no longer existed. It returned to nothingness in a breath's time. Everything was beaten into nothingness. This was absolute power, breaking through all obstructions. Jiang Tian's palm shattered the last true dragon law. He took a step forward, charging towards Decimating Abyss. Kill! Decimating Abyss stared with wide eyes, adopting a stance of fighting to the death. He seemed to be extremely furious, thrusting out his halberd. Suddenly his figure turned. Like a flying dragon in the sky, he tore through the laws of space, piercing through layers of space. In the blink of an eye, he was already thousands of miles away. Shockingly, it was the Dragon Travel's 10,000 miles movement technique that the dragon race was most proficient in. Decimating Abyss is actually fleeing. Everyone was deeply shocked, unable to believe it. Cultivators usually had long lifespans, experiencing the vicissitudes of life. Their temperament was different from mortals. They usually viewed honor, bloodline, and emotions with extreme indifference. Instead, they were extremely rational, even callous, considering the pros and cons of everything. If a cultivator were to face an expert, especially an expert whose life was in danger, he would definitely not fight to the death. Instead, he would flee thousands of miles away, avoiding the brunt of the attack. Especially when Decimating Abyss and Jiang Tian were actually not in a battle of life and death for treasures. There were no interests involved. To put it bluntly, Decimating Abyss only wanted to kill Jiang Tian to show off his might after coming into being. After sensing danger, fleeing was nothing out of the ordinary. But this was Decimating Abyss. The famous ancient demon dragon, a matchless fiend, was actually forced to flee by someone. How shocking was this? Little worm, you actually want to flee? The best place for you to return to is to make a steaming hot snake banquet as a sacrifice to Fairy Qingju and I. Jiang Tian snickered, taking a step forward in a wild and domineering manner. The silhouette of a Kuan Peng appeared behind him. He seemed to be able to traverse the myriad worlds, reaching everywhere and everywhere. The boundless laws of void obediently parted in front of him like subjects facing a supreme emperor. The curvature of the laws of space naturally formed behind him, turning into a projectile and pushing force. He easily arrived 1,000 kilometers away in an instant. Like a ghost, he suddenly appeared behind Decimating Abyss. Jiang, I've already retreated in defeat. With this battle, it's enough for you to look down on the world and make a name for yourself. Why do you have to pursue me relentlessly and force me into a corner? Die. Decimating Abyss glared furiously, his furious roar shaking the heavens and earth as he turned around and swung his halberd. Sun-shattering, star-shattering. Chapter 1933. They saw. The boundless might of a supreme-grade sacred artifact filled the space within 1,000 miles. Boundless true dragon laws extended out from the halberd in all directions, turning into hundreds of furious dragons that danced in the air. They were mighty and mighty as they roared into the sky. Crack, crack. Countless mountains collapsed instantly under the suppression of the laws. Many golden core and nascent soul demonic beasts hiding at the places where the spirit veins gathered were turned into dust in the blink of an eye. The might that shook the sun and moon caused the air to shatter. Endless cold light shone and the laws were as heavy as a mountain. At this moment, decimating abyss poured in all his magic power, and truly unleashed the might of a saint's attack. Countless spectators paled. Demonic laws rise. Decimating abyss roared almost at the same time as he stabbed out with the halberd. Instantly, black demonic chi gushed out from his body, filling the air and turning it into hell. The incomparably viscous devil chi laws manifested into various kinds of devil gods. Some were ferocious. Some were mighty and vigorous. Some had mouths full of fangs. Some had legs on their heads. Some were lifeless. Some were surrounded by rivers of blood. A total of several dozen devil gods occupied positions in all directions, protecting the surroundings of the decimating abyss. Decimating abyss was indeed someone with great talent and great willpower and ambition. When he was tainted by the demonic chi back then, he should have been heavily injured or even killed. However, he never gave up and took a different path. After much hardship, he condensed the demonic chi into laws and refined them into his own abilities. The laws of the demon world were extremely terrifying. Once the law attacks of human cultivators fell into them, they would be instantly tainted, corroded and disintegrated, unable to cause any harm to him. This was also the reason why the demon imprisoning immortal jar could only imprison him, but was unable to refine him. He relied on the laws of the demon world, and had shocking defensive capabilities. This kind of defense was no longer at the material level, but at the level of laws and even the great Tao. Decimating abyss is indeed a formidable character whose name shakes the world. This is what it means to be both offensive and defensive, seeking perfection. Seeing this, Elder Gu and Nangongyu both nodded and sighed. After decimating abyss realized how strong Jiang Tian was and could possibly be a threat to him, his battle strategy was no longer to fight to the death like before. Instead, it was capable of both offense and defense. It was watertight and extremely meticulous. With this old man's many years of experience fighting fiendish cultivators, I dare to say that with the decimating abyss's fiendish laws protecting his body, he would at least be able to protect himself in this collision. An experienced almighty figure asserted. In fact, fellow Taoist Jiang is going to suffer. Many people nodded in agreement. Fairy Qingjue frowned slightly and clenched her fists, seemingly worried. Li Yichen, whose face was swollen, did not want to speak at first. But the one who spoke was an experienced soul formation grand cultivator. He snorted and said, "The Dharma of fiendish nature is powerful and strange. Many sacred grounds and divine sects have studied it for 1,000 years, but they still haven't found a way to break it. This Jiang Xiqing is just a cultivator from the outer river. Even if her body is strong and she is talented, I'm afraid she is no match for us in terms of cultivation techniques." This was a competition of laws. It wasn't a physical body. A ruler has its strengths, and an inch has its weaknesses. In the arena, facing this earth-shaking attack, Jiang Tian's expression remained calm as he calmly raised his palm. Clang. A sound that shook the heavens like a huge bell was heard. The space within a few hundred miles shattered like a mirror, revealing a giant black hole. Countless space storms surged in the black hole. Rocks and cities were uprooted from the ground and disintegrated one after another, turning into fragments that flowed into the black hole. Heaven and earth even collapsed at this moment. Countless streams of essence chi swept over with the two of them at the center like dragons, as if the water of the East Ocean was pouring. Even the entire world paused slightly at this moment. Then the next moment. Boom. Endless terrifying sounds resounded within a few thousand miles like billions of thunderbolts. Everything within a 1,000-mile radius was instantly reduced to dust by this attack. Mountains, plants, demon beasts, and even cultivators were all turned into powder, and nothing could be seen clearly. Everything in heaven and earth fell into chaos. Even divine consciousnesses couldn't penetrate, and even observation Dharma artifacts stopped working. Luckily, the decimating abyss sect was afraid that Elder Gu and the others would try to stop them, so they escaped in the opposite direction. Otherwise, Elder Gu and the others would have been killed or at least severely injured. It's too terrifying, too powerful. Countless people's faces turned pale. Even the soul formation cultivators who were like living fossils were trembling. In front of this world-destroying power, they were nothing more than grass. That was the real power of heaven. Only now do I understand why Void Return cultivators are called saints. The Lord of the Eastern Canyon trembled and laughed hysterically. They're indeed as powerful as deities and Buddhas. The others were so terrified that they couldn't say anything. Who won this clash? At this moment, all kinds of substances and powders were everywhere. The laws of heaven and earth hadn't been repaired, and the fragments of the Tao were still flying. Everyone's divine consciousnesses and Dharma powers of the Dharma artifacts still couldn't penetrate it. Suddenly, the decimating abyss demonic dragon rushed out from one side of the chaotic battlefield, screaming. Half of its body was almost shattered in the clash, and many holes had appeared on its body, with blood gushing out. That was the blood of an ancient saint. A drop of it could kill a nascent soul cultivator, but there was so much of it at the moment. Some of the wounds were even terrifying. They went through the body from the front to the back, and even the light golden bones were exposed. The many mighty figures who were watching the battle were speechless. He can even break the laws of fiendish nature. Even Elder Gu and Fairy Qingjue were shocked. Then, ecstasy appeared on their faces. Didn't this mean that there was a way to deal with the frequent demonic tides? I'm sorry I was wrong. The soul formation cultivator who said that Jiang Tian and the decimating abyss could protect themselves was embarrassed. Seeing the mocking gazes of the people around him, Li Yichen wanted to slap himself a few times. If I comment on this battle again, I'm a dog. Undying fiend body. The decimating abyss broke through the void and fled for his life while roaring crazily and channeling his Dharma powers. Ever since he was born, he had almost never been injured like this. His fleshly body was being refined, reconstructed, and repaired at a rapid pace. After all, he already had the strength of a saint despite being a half-saint. He was a life form of essence, chi and laws. Furthermore, he had the bloodline of a true dragon, and was extremely talented. His divine powers were born naturally, and his self-healing ability was extremely strong. Coupled with the fiendish techniques he cultivated, he was almost immortal. In his shock and anger, the decimating abyss secretly gritted his teeth and swore. If he could escape unscathed this time, he would definitely kill Jiang Tian in the future to take revenge. Tear him into pieces. Burn his bones and scatter his ashes. Furthermore, he had to extract his soul and torture him for 10,000 years in the fiendish fire. Only then could he resolve the hatred in his heart today. Just as he was thinking, Jiang Tian's figure suddenly appeared 10 meters in front of him. At such a close distance, even his pores could be seen clearly. I'm not fighting anymore. I can't beat you. I'll admit defeat, alright? I'm willing to serve you and follow you for the rest of my life. I'll be your slave and servant, loyal and devoted to you. The decimating abyss waved his hands and wanted to cry. How was Jiang Tian so fast? Chapter 1934. Oh my God! At this moment, the entire crowd was astonished and shocked. Fairy Qingjue's beautiful eyes almost popped out as she watched the decimating abyss demon dragon bow deeply to Jiang Tian. It was like a dream. The decimating abyss demon dragon had shocked thousands of years, suppressed thousands of sects in countless countries. It was no exaggeration to say that the decimating abyss demon dragon's strength was comparable to the sect master of the divine sect. But now it was forced to admit defeat by a rogue cultivator. It's actually... Li Yichen was shocked. He thought highly of himself and considered himself a genius. He was extremely narcissistic and proud of himself. But now, compared to Jiang Tian, he instantly paled in comparison. It could even be said that they could not be compared. He was not qualified to compare. After all, Jiang Tian could be comparable to the sect master of the divine sect with this battle. And he was only a seed of the sect master with a glimmer of hope to become a giant. If he developed smoothly, it would take thousands of years to reach this height. And during this period, how many difficulties and obstacles would he have to go through? It could be said that he had a slim chance of survival. There were too many seeds, and only a small number of them could truly become giants. Most of them died on the way to the next realm. His strength is actually so terrifying. Is this what gives you the confidence to disregard everything? The regret in Lin Dyer's heart was so strong that it could not be any stronger. His intestines were green with regret and knotted up. The more powerful Jiang Tian was, the more she understood what she had missed. Before this, she had always thought that Jiang Tian was too arrogant and unreasonable. He did not take her, the eldest daughter of the Lin family, seriously. He did not even take the feudal lords and the royal family seriously. He was simply arrogant and unreasonable. But now, she finally understood that Jiang Tian naturally had the ability to ignore everything. At this moment, Jiang Tian's strength was enough to look down on the entire Saint Origin world. The Eastern Empire was nothing to him. If he wanted to, he could destroy the Eastern royal family and seize the throne. Fellow Taoist Jiang, you can stop now. This person has the bloodline of the true dragon. His talent is extraordinary, and his foundation is extraordinary. Moreover, he has refined the laws of the demon realm, and made a soul contract with him. He will be a good helper. Elder Gu used his divine sense to remind him. Elder Gu's words are reasonable. Fellow Taoist Jiang, you should stop now. Many other cultivators, including Fairy Qingjue, agreed with him. The strength of the demonic dragon decimating abyss was enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with the sect master of the divine sect and the great leader of the sacred lands. If he was willing to submit, then Jiang Tian would have an additional killing machine. Furthermore, the decimating abyss possessed the laws of devilish nature, which was a huge advantage. One had to know that the demonic laws were extremely corrosive and would damage the vitality and law attacks of human cultivators. However, they could resist each other. Using the devilish laws of the decimating abyss, Jiang Tian was even able to enter deep into some places with dense devilish energy, hunt down devilish beasts, and obtain cultivation resources. This was an irreplaceable convenience. Most importantly, it was not convenient for everyone to say it out loud. The decimating abyss fiend dragon still had a trump card that he had yet to use. Even if he self-destructed and perished together with Jiang Tian, or if he burned his life force essence and used it as a blood sacrifice to the black gold true dragon halberd, he could still severely injure Jiang Tian in a shocking attack. One had to know that the decimating abyss was also a formidable person of his generation. He was resolute and vicious. As long as Jiang Tian revealed his killing intent, the decimating abyss who was at his wit's end would definitely not hesitate to do so. Therefore, to Jiang Tian, the most logical choice was to let the decimating abyss off, and make a soul contract with him to make him his slave. In fact, even the decimating abyss revealed a confident smile when he bowed. Slave or servant? You're not worthy. However, what no one expected was that the past self Jiang Tian laughed in disdain. His face was as cold as steel, and his eyes were filled with coldness and arrogance. He snorted coldly. Your bloodline is impure and your lifespan is almost up. In my eyes you're like an ant, completely worthless. Your only value is to stew you with Divine Lord Niu Ben, and make a steaming pot of dragon-tiger battle. What? The moment he said that, everyone's expressions changed drastically. The decimating abyss even exclaimed. Before he could react, the past self Jiang Tian had already punched out. The void was destroyed. The laws of nature collapsed and the great collapse appeared. The space in front of Jiang Tian's fist seemed to have fallen into pure void. Even space disappeared. It first formed a black hole, then a negative vacuum and finally a singularity. It was formless and dark. The surrounding void shattered and condensed, twisting and curling as it emitted a terrifying suction force and a heaviness that could tear everything apart. Everything carried yin and embraced yang. In space, after being condensed and compressed to the extreme, energy suddenly exploded and expanded. Chaos was born. It was extremely sharp, extremely explosive and filled with terrifying energy. It was invincible and unstoppable. It was as if the heavens and earth were split apart, forming planets, gathering nebulae and flowing out galaxies. There's actually such a fist in the human world. The decimating abyss's heart was filled with warnings as an unprecedented sense of danger rose. He turned pale with fright and used his movement technique, turning into a zigzagging streak of light, wanting to avoid the attack. The true dragon lineage had various movement techniques to begin with, and were extremely adept at concealment. Their speed was also unparalleled in the universe. However, under the violent punch of the past self Jiang Tian, the decimating abyss actually could not dodge it. Bang! With an earth-shattering explosion, one of the decimating abyss's shoulders shattered, revealing the white bone stubble. Half of his body was covered in blood, and his flesh was torn apart. Dragon blood with fiend chi lingering around it sprayed all over the sky. Translucent flesh rained down and landed on the ground, instantly corroding huge pits with a radius of 5 kilometers. The power of a single punch is actually so strong. The decimating abyss is an ancient demon with the bloodline of the true dragon. Coupled with the protection of the fiend laws, he's extremely powerful. But everyone was in disbelief. Why was Jiang Tian so terrifying that he could destroy the decimating abyss's incomparably tough body with a single punch? But they did not know. What Jiang Tian used was the Eternal Universe Divine Fist, simulating the scene of the universe returning to the origin and the eruption of chaos. This move was comparable to the natural power of the universe, and had already surpassed the category of gods, void return saints, and even the power of the laws of heaven and earth. With this ultimate technique, the Eternal Universe Immortal Sects name shook the Central Galaxy, and they became one of the 9 great immortal sects. If this fist technique was cultivated to the extreme after passing the tribulation and becoming an immortal, it would be easy for one to crush a planet with a finger and destroy a galaxy with a single hand. Even a pure-blooded true dragon could be killed with a raise of the hand. Although Jiang Tian was only at the nascent soul realm now, the 3 flowers at one's prominence was the limit of the nascent soul realm, which was equivalent to the child of a god. He could only unleash 10% of the power of this move, but it was still not something the decimating abyss could withstand. Ah, Jiang, why do you have to force me so bitterly? I've already submitted. The decimating abyss roared crazily, both shocked and furious. With fear, he retreated frantically to repair his body, while waving the golden true dragon halberd, activating vast dermic powers to create earth-shattering waves to deal with the attack. The rolling fiend chi was like raging waves that covered the sky and the sun, forming a supreme fiend chi domain that wanted to corrode and block Jiang Tian. Rip. Under the illumination of the divine disk's resplendent radiance, vanishing Jiang Tian was like a peerless heavenly blade that sliced through butter, easily slicing through the devilish domain, and traversing 100 kilometers of space. As if he had appeared out of thin air, he suddenly appeared in front of decimating abyss and punched out once again. Chapter 1935. Oh my god! That speed, that movement technique. Elder Gu, Fairy Qingjue, Nangong Yu and the others were shocked and in awe. Is that why fellow Taoist Jiang ignored the decimating abyss and surrendered? He wasn't afraid of fiend chi, fiends or even the fiendish domain in the first place. In fact, some of the Sacred Grounds leaders who were watching the battle through the water observation mirror were shocked and in disbelief. The fiend chi domain was extremely corrosive and could dissolve the dermic powers, divine powers and even laws of all cultivators or dharma treasures. Nascent soul heavenly lords would fall to the ground like mortals after entering it. Even soul formation cultivators could still fly, but their speed would be greatly reduced. Their movements would be slowed down and their reactions would be slow. They would lose the initiative and be at the mercy of others. However, Jiang Tian was like an uninhabited land. Roar. Seeing that it was too late and impossible to dodge, the decimating abyss roared furiously and opened its bloody mouth, turning day into night. An enormous black hole was formed, and a terrifying suction force sprayed out from within, seeming as if it wanted to swallow the entire heaven and earth, including Jiang Tian. The true dragon lineage was also a top-tier space creature. Although they did not have a small world in their bodies like the Tautai that could devour the world, they were still extremely good at doing so. It would be easy for an adult pure-blooded true dragon to devour an entire planet with life. Furthermore, the decimating abyss had refined the fiendish laws, and that suction force was even more terrifying. The black hole was dark and the fiendish laws appeared as black patterns that were densely packed and filled with fiendish emotions that made one dizzy. Violence, despair, bewitchment, evil, depravity, and blood. It also made one feel an unimaginable hatred towards the heavens, the earth, the merciless Tao, the troublesome karma, the cruel fate, and the fact that they did not kill enough. Enveloped by darkness, Jiang Tian seemed like he was about to be sucked into the dragon's mouth. This is way too terrifying. Who can resist the combination of the suction force of the true dragon lineage and the fiendish laws? Fairy Qingjue and the others, who were still in awe of Jiang Tian just a moment ago, felt their hearts hang in their throats as worry welled up in their hearts. A thin saber light shone and a blazing light lit up the world, as if dawn had broken and dispelled the darkness. Jiang Tian used his palm as a saber and slashed out. Palm blade. With a single slash, the mighty gale was cut in half, and the darkness was cleaved apart by a single slash. Passing self, Jiang Tian broke free from the restraints of the devouring power. Borrowing the momentum of the slash, he soared upwards, arriving in front of the decimating abyss in an instant. Simple and direct, he threw out a punch. When this punch was struck out, it was simple and natural, and it carried the Tao insight of the passage of time. It was like a primeval god was developing a fist technique, yet it was violent and overbearing to the extreme, and it seemed even capable of striking down the stars that covered the sky. Dragon blood splattered everywhere. Jiang Tian shattered the tough jaw of the decimating abyss demon dragon, causing it to fall off. The crystalline dragon bone flickered with resplendent light as it fell from the sky. As it rubbed against the laws of the Great Path, it ignited with flames that soared into the sky. From afar it looked like a meteor shower. It was obvious who was strong and who was weak. In this collision, Jiang Tian won once again, and was in a crushing position. Everyone was shocked to the point of numbness, unable to utter a single word. Fairy Qingjue's beautiful eyes rippled with extraordinary splendor. Her full chest rose and fell violently because she was too excited. Jiang Tian's strength, this fist technique that seemed to contain the mighty power of heaven and earth, and the phenomenon of splitting heaven and earth apart, was something they had never seen or heard of before. They could not even comprehend the concepts and laws within it. They could only vaguely feel that this fist technique had the phenomenon of splitting heaven and earth apart and creating all things. It had the feeling of benevolence and benevolence, but also the feeling of the birth of new things and the sharpness of breaking through all obstructions. The toughness of this person's body and the strength of his fist technique are truly rare throughout history. The decimating abyss demon dragon's heart palpitated. He wanted to retreat, burning a portion of his lifeblood essence, and using the blood escape technique to escape for his life. You can't escape. Passing self, Jiang Tian used the Kuan-Peng with extreme speed, turning into a streak of flowing light, piercing through the layers of space and chasing after him. He threw out the eternal universe divine fist again. Bang, bang, bang. Passing self, Jiang Tian was unstoppable and invincible. He was much more powerful and savage than Jiang Tian's original body. The decimating abyss demon dragon was actually beaten to the point where even the golden true dragon halberd was useless, suffering heavy injuries continuously. Once the eternal universe divine fist was thrown out, the sky trembled, the earth caved in, the sun and moon lost their light, and the stars moved. This was a kind of great power that even the laws and great Taos were crushed to pieces. It was terrifying to the extreme. Miserable cries and curses filled the sky. The decimating abyss demon dragon was beaten to the point where his bones and tendons were broken. There was not a single place on his body that was unharmed. Even his frontal bone was about to be shattered, and his soul was about to be shaken out. In the end, under everyone's terrified gazes, the decimating abyss demon dragon used his ultimate move in a moment of desperation. Two blazing divine lights shot out from his pair of dragon horns, cutting through the sky and breaking through the chaotic aura around Jiang Tian, falling down. Break. However, passing self, Jiang Tian was protected by the divine laws, so he was only lightly injured. Moreover, his recovery speed was extremely fast, and he immediately recovered. Frenzied killing intent surged in his eyes. Passing self, Jiang Tian stepped forward and swept out a leg that was as sharp as a peerless heavenly blade. directly breaking the decimating abyss demon dragon's sword-like halberd dragon horns. Golden dragon blood with black demonic chi lingering around it, and white jade-like dragon marrow filled the sky, collapsing the sky and shattering the laws. The decimating abyss demon dragon couldn't help but howl in pain. His demonic golden vertical pupils were filled with fear as he held the golden true dragon halberd and fled. The dragon horns were where the laws and principles condensed on the true dragon's body, and they were the toughest. With his cultivation, the toughness of this pair of dragon horns was no weaker than a divine weapon, but they were still broken by Jiang Tian's leg. How could he not be afraid? Too powerful. This is how cultivators of our generation should be. At this moment, everyone watching the battle was shocked. The hearts of many living fossils that had been dead for too long, and were like stagnant water in a dry well, were filled with surging waves. They were fascinated, and their blood boiled because of it. However, the decimating abyss demon dragon's movement technique was too weak compared to Jiang Tian's. He was blocked by Jiang Tian again, and shattered into dozens of pieces by Jiang Tian's palm. Broken body rebirth. The decimating abyss used the innate ability of the true dragon bloodline, and very quickly reassembled. This time, his frenzied aura of slaughter surged into the sky, carrying a deep demonic nature. Boundless resentment and determination flashed through his scarlet eyes that had become bloodshot as he roared madly. Blood sacrifice halberd. Crack. At this moment, his broken body directly collapsed, turning into a shocking streak of blood that wrapped around the golden true dragon halberd. Even the divine treasures that were like divine palaces collapsed, turning into endless dermic powers that poured into the halberd. Only a deity with a dragon head and a human body was left, fleeing into the depths of the void. He actually used his life essence to sacrifice the halberd, summoning the soul of the true dragon to unleash the greatest power of this supreme-grade divine weapon. The corner of Elder Gu's eyes twitched in shock, as if he hadn't expected the decimating abyss demon dragon to be so decisive. Then boundless fear surfaced on his face as Elder Gu shouted, "Fellow Taoists, run!" Chapter 1936. Cultivators and magic treasures influenced each other. They would often place their magic treasures into their dantian, spirit embryo, or divine treasures, nourishing and polishing them with blood essence, true essence, and laws. After using and refining them for a long time, their lives would often be intertwined, forming a close connection and a deep connection. When cultivators faced danger, the power of their magic treasures would also sublimate at any time, their potential stimulated. Especially decimating abyss, who possessed the bloodline of a true dragon, was even more sensitive to the true dragon's remains and remnant soul within the golden true dragon halberd. The potential of this natal magic treasure was also greater, making it easier to stimulate. Once the blood sacrifice was made, the true dragon's remains and soul within the halberd would be stimulated, transforming into endless and terrifying laws and great Tao attacks. However, generally speaking, even if one used their natal essence as a blood sacrifice for a magic treasure, they would definitely not give up their entire corporeal body. Using a mouthful of natal essence was enough. Even if one used up all of their natal essence, their corporeal body would still be present. It was just that their cultivation would be greatly weakened. But if they were nourished with natural treasures and consumed nourishing and healing medicines, they would be able to recover very quickly. Elder Gu and the rest had never imagined that decimating abyss would actually be so ruthless and decisive, directly dispersing the divine body that he had refined for countless years, sacrificing the life of his corporeal body as a blood sacrifice for the halberd, unleashing the greatest power of this supreme-grade sacred artifact. This was a cruel price to pay, but he still had to kill Jiang Tian, leaving only his divine body intact, and find a chance to reforge his corporeal body. This was simply putting his life on the line for survival. The courage and resoluteness contained within this caused others to both respect and fear him. As expected of the ancient devil dragon whose name had shaken the ages. As expected of the unparalleled giant that looked down on thousands of sects and countless countries. When everyone had retreated several hundred li, the power of the golden true dragon halberd finally erupted. Rumble. With a world-shaking boom, The mighty might of the dragon race transformed into an incomparably enormous golden pillar of light, at least 100 li in diameter. It soared into the sky, reaching a height of 1,000,000 li, shattering the earth and mountains, evaporating the lakes and rivers, shattering the clouds and stars, collapsing the laws and great Tao, tearing the sky apart. At this moment, in the boundless Saint Origin world, be it mortals or cultivators, everyone could see this dazzling pillar of light with their naked eyes. Heavens! What is this? It seems to have happened in the Eastern Gorge Duke's fief in the Eastern Empire. Terrifying. Could it be that the 9 heavens immortals are fighting? At this moment, the entire Saint Origin world was trembling. The earth was undulating like waves. Everyone couldn't stand still as they exclaimed and looked up. Whether it was the high and mighty hidden sects, the royal families of the mortal world, or even the common people, they were all paying close attention and could not be ignored. Balls of 5-colored divine lightning appeared around the light pillar and exploded. Every bolt of lightning was tens of thousands of feet long. Soon, they turned into lightning dragons and coiled in the void, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. They were extremely real and heavy. This was the manifestation of the laws. Lightning was one of the laws controlled by the true dragon lineage. Not only were there lightning dragons, but there were also all kinds of dragon-shaped laws of wind, water, earth, and fire. They were all different in shape and shape, reflecting each other as they circled around the light pillar. The lightning illuminated the heaven and earth. Vast primordial laws fell, and the divine light of creation surged as if the heaven and earth were being split apart. Around the halberd, a pitch-black hole suddenly appeared in the space, forming an extremely deep chaotic hole. It seemed to be connected to another world. It was as if the world of the dragon clan had been smelted and became a part of the halberd, becoming its laws and power. Boom. In this pitch-black chaotic hole, the golden true dragon halberd shrank instead of expanding. The vast cold light and magical power shrunk to a length of 10 feet. The black light flickered and was incomparably heavy as if it was real. However, it was actually the condensation of the laws and the great Tao. It had transcended the physical world. At this moment, everything in the world was gone. The light pillar and the dragon-shaped laws returned to silence, and were all melted into the cold light of the halberd. Only the halberd remained in the sky, seemingly calm. However, it was as if a raging dragon was hibernating and accumulating power, ready to launch a thunderous attack at any time. It was like the calm before the storm. It was the most terrifying. Suddenly, the golden true dragon halberd moved again. It was straight and simple as it stabbed towards Jiang Tian. However, in the eyes of many mighty figures, this attack was unprecedentedly terrifying. Roar. Amidst the waves of incomparably vast and ancient dragon roars that seemed to have passed through a myriad of years and caused one's soul to shake and be on the verge of shattering, the halberd actually caused various grand Tao fragments to float up and down everywhere it passed. Wind, lightning, earth, fire, and darkness. There was naturally no need to mention these various laws and grand Taos that could be seen normally, and it even touched upon the even more profound grand Taos of space and time. Wherever the halberd passed, the void collapsed. It was dark, chaotic, and pitch black. It was as if it could annihilate the heaven and earth, transcend time, deprive all things, distort the laws, and distort karma. It was not only the sight that was black, but also the senses and cognition. What a strange spear. The dragon's power and demonic nature are mixed. It is indeed difficult to deal with. Elder Gu and the others, who were thousands of miles away, gasped. It was as if they had been deprived of their sight, hearing, and touch. They could no longer distinguish up from down, left from right, and could no longer grasp the passage of time. They only felt that even if a Buddha or a true immortal descended, it would be difficult to dodge this attack. After all, this was an attack that the decimating abyss had used all his cultivation to activate, awakening the slumbering true dragon's corpse and soul. Various true dragon laws surged out. However, under everyone's incredulous gazes. Break. Jiang Tian roared as he clenched his right hand into a fist. His thumb was placed between his middle and index fingers, as he formed a strange fist seal and punched the halberd fiercely. He still took it head-on with his physical body. Clang. The 30-meter-long halberd light was completely shattered by Jiang Tian's fist. No matter how noble your bloodline is, your innate abilities, your demonic nature is strange, and your sacred weapon is powerful. How can you match the power of my complete chaotic divine body? When the cold light of the long halberd was broken, the entire sky and earth fell into a deathly silence. Everyone was speechless. At this moment, all the spectators, whether it was Elder Gu and the others around the 100-Flower Peak, or the Sacred Grounds sect master, or the Divine Sect's sect master, were all dumbfounded. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. The outcome has been decided. Even if the decimating abyss self-destructs, it won't be able to hurt him. In the depths of a certain divine sect, a grand elder who was watching this battle had a long white beard, and was at the void reversion realm. He had a long lifespan and rich experience, and could be called a living fossil. He was one of the founding masters of this divine sect. He was deeply moved and could not conceal his shock. Indeed, the golden true dragon halberd lost control instantly, as if it had lost its dermic powers and spirituality. It was actually sent flying backwards at an extremely fast speed like a shooting star. Fitch. Countless people exclaimed as they rode streaks of light and shot into the sky, dodging rapidly. Chapter 1937. After all, it was a supreme-grade sacred weapon that contained the remains of a true dragon, and even its spirit. In the collision between two saint-level experts, its potential was unleashed, and it could easily kill a divine transformation realm expert, and seriously injure a sage. Naturally, he had to avoid it. This Jiang guy is really tyrannical. It's just that he's too reckless. So what if he withstood the blow that consumed his blood essence? What if the other party self-destructs? Can he withstand it? The self-detonation of a half-saint god is the most powerful. Li Yichen was still lying on the ground, hiding his body and chattering away. It's actually the true dragon halberd. Out of the blue, a cold light shot towards him like a meteor. It was too late for him to dodge. He let out a scream and was instantly crushed by the magic power of the halberd. Even his body and soul were turned into fine powder and green smoke, disappearing from this world. I'll die just lying down? Before he died, his face was still full of astonishment and fear. He did not expect that he, the first disciple of the Archaean sect, a peerless genius, would die so miserably, without knowing why, and so sullen. However, at this time, not many people noticed his death. He's dead. Fairy Qingjue sensed it and only sighed regretfully, but she was not very sad. Li Yichen had shown underestimation of the enemy, laziness, cowardice, and unkindness in this dispute, which had already disappointed her greatly. She planned to strip him of his many positions in the sect, and expel him from the sect after this matter was over. In this way, it would save her a lot of trouble, and she would not appear to be unkind and unkind. He actually ended up like this. Lin Dai's beautiful eyes also flashed with sadness. Li Yichen was young, handsome, and elegant. He was talented and had an extraordinary foundation. More importantly, he handled matters calmly and appropriately. He treated people like a spring breeze. This was definitely not something that Jiang Tian, who looked low-key but was actually arrogant, could compare to. However, his strength was still too weak. He actually fell into the trap while watching Jiang Tian's battle. Who could he reason with? The others did not pay attention to Li Yichen's death. After all, it was rare to see a battle between saints. Moreover, it was related to the safety of Saint Origin world. At this time, who would pay attention to a small fry like Li Yichen? Now that the battle has reached this point, the only path left for the decimating abyss is to self-destruct. With the decimating abyss's ability, even regenerating from a drop of blood, and rebuilding a fleshly body is nothing difficult. For soul formation grand cultivators, self-destruction is the real meaning of death. Elder Gu, Nangongyu, and many other big shots were watching the scene with burning eyes. Their faces were extremely solemn. They knew that the battle between Jiang Tian and the decimating abyss had already reached its final juncture. Victory and defeat would be decided in these few seconds. Would the decimating abyss choose to self-destruct? Would Jiang Tian be able to withstand the terrifying destructive power of a god's self-destruction? The power of a god's self-destruction should be similar to that of a blood sacrifice to a holy weapon. Since fellow Taoist Jiang was able to withstand the might of the decimating abyss's sacrificial holy weapon, he would naturally be able to withstand the self-destruction of a god. The strength of fellow Taoist Jiang's physical body is simply unprecedented. However, Elder Gu and Saintess Qing Ju firmly believed that Jiang Tian's victory was already decided. Moreover, they believed that the possibility of the decimating abyss choosing to self-destruct and perishing together with Jiang Tian was extremely low. With the decimating abyss's rich battle experience and vision, they could naturally see that even if a god self-destructed, it would be difficult to kill Jiang Tian. The so-called perishing together was not realistic. More importantly, the decimating abyss had no enmity with Jiang Tian. Moreover, he was all alone, without a sect, disciples, relatives, or even clansmen. He did not have the kind of spirit and motivation to sacrifice himself for his descendants, bloodline, and roots. He would definitely choose to protect himself. As expected, just as Jiang Tian took a step forward calmly and was about to capture the golden true dragon halberd, the golden true dragon halberd that had originally become dim and lightless like a mortal artifact suddenly shone. It let out a resounding dragon roar, and actually turned into a ball of golden light, enveloping the god of the decimating abyss and fleeing into the distance. The golden true dragon halberd actually escaped. Everyone was shocked and in disbelief. In their impression, the reputation of the golden true dragon halberd was not inferior to that of the decimating abyss. In the ancient era, it had killed countless people and left millions of corpses behind. It was an invincible existence. It could completely kill a void reversion saint, but it was actually forced to flee by a nascent soul cultivator like Jiang Tian. No, it's the decimating abyss that's escaping. Elder Gu's gaze was focused, and a just as I expected smile appeared on his lips. The decimating abyss has a soul refined and nurtured in the sacred weapon, so he can control it freely. However, he has already lost the ability to fight fellow Taoist Jiang. This sacred weapon is made from the remains of a pure-blooded true dragon combined with supreme-grade black gold, refined by a supreme giant of the ancient era using laws and great Daos. It can be said to be indestructible, so the decimating abyss very cleverly used it to protect himself. Although fellow Taoist Jiang is powerful, whether or not he can shatter this supreme-grade sacred weapon is still uncertain. Nangongyu said worriedly. The abyssal demon dragon had once wreaked havoc in an era, bringing endless darkness, slaughter, and chaos. If it was lucky enough to escape this time, reconstruct its body, and make a comeback, it would bring endless calamity to this land. He wants to escape to the critical canyon and the evil-infested ridge? Suddenly, a spectator exclaimed. That's right. The evil chi there is heavy, and to human cultivators it is dangerous. However, it is the best place for him to reconstruct his body and recover his cultivation. Hearing this, someone's expression drastically changed and wanted to break his leg. This place was not far from the critical canyon and the evil-infested ridge. With the speed of the decimating abyss, it only needed the time of 3 incense sticks to burn to reach there. Once this happened, Jiang Tian would fall into a passive situation. Whoosh! Passing self Jiang Tian turned into a Kuan-Peng lightning bolt, and with one step, he chased after the golden true dragon halberd with an unparalleled speed. Finally, after 10 flicks of the fingers and tens of thousands of miles away, passing self Jiang Tian finally caught up. Passing self Jiang Tian didn't say anything and slapped down with his palm. This palm gave people the feeling of a vast continent pressing down, causing the laws below to shatter, and the grand Tao to be annihilated. Under this palm, heaven and earth were turned upside down. The decimating abyss god only had time to let out a miserable howl before he was completely annihilated. At this moment, the heavens and the earth were dead silent. Countless people were shocked and lost their voices. In the area of Hundred Flowers Peak, astral winds howled in the sky, creating chaos. Occasionally, there would be thunderous explosions. This was the aftermath of the battle that caused the laws and the grand Tao to collide with each other. However, in everyone's eyes, the entire world became a still scene. The background became ethereal until it became nothingness. In everyone's eyes, There was nothing else in this world. Only the middle-aged cultivator with white hair as white as frost, deep facial features, distant eyes, and old robes remained. After half a minute, when passing self Jiang Tian raised his hand and grabbed the golden true dragon halberd that didn't seem to have any magic power fluctuations. Everyone finally pulled themselves out from the endless shock and gradually reacted. Elder Mo, after the battle ends, immediately express my respect to this Mr. Jiang on my behalf. Also, publicly invite this Mr. Jiang to visit our sacred ground. A sacred ground leader directly took out a communication artifact and sent a message to an elder who was watching the battle. Yes, sacred leader. The elder's body shook and quickly flew towards passing self Jiang Tian. Chapter 1938. From today onwards, our Saint Origin continent will have a rising superstar that will suppress the world. Another big shot from the sacred ground was greatly shocked. He frowned and made the final decision. He also immediately ordered the disciples present to represent themselves and express goodwill to Jiang Tian. Many big shots had the same attitude. Jiang Tian's invincibility made them unable to ignore him. Jiang Tian's background was clean, and he came from outside the river. He had no connections with the hidden sects and naturally had no inclination towards them. At this time, as long as any sect could rope in Jiang Tian, it would be equivalent to gaining a powerful helper, and they would even have the capital to reach the peak. Even the decimating abyss dragon, which burned its life essence and activated a supreme-grade sacred weapon, could not hurt him at all. Instead, it was slapped to death by him. Defeated? Niu Ben's deity had already fled thousands of miles away. At this moment, looking at the man who stood proudly in the middle of the field, his long robes fluttering in the wind, his facial features well-defined, his eyes filled with the vicissitudes of time, filled with a strange charm and unharmed, he was like a middle-aged scholar. However, he did not dare to escape, because he knew that he was still locked onto by Jiang Tian's divine sense. Moreover, his speed was not even 1,000th of Jiang Tian's. Escaping meant death. Clenching his teeth, he flew to Jiang Tian and kowtowed, saying that he would surrender to Jiang Tian and be a loyal slave. Jiang Tian will naturally not kill him now, because he was still useful. Fellow Taoist Jiang, today's battle was truly marvelous. I admire you to the extreme. Slaying a demonic dragon with one hand, a nascent soul comparable to a saint, this old man admits defeat and is ashamed of his inferiority. Seeing Elder Gu, Saintess Qingjue, and the elders of the major holy lands and holy lands, these big shots that she usually had to look up to, had surrounded Jiang Tian so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Lin Dyer only felt that this was the biggest joke of her life. Mr. Zhang's body is invincible, his magic power is earth-shattering, the decimating abyss demonic dragon that can kill a saint can be called a saint. Yes, 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 Saint Siqing. Fellow Taoist Jiang is naturally worthy of this title. Such voices could be heard all around. No matter how young Jiang Tian looked, no matter where he came from, and no matter if he was a peak-stage nascent soul cultivator or a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator. The fact that he had slain the abyss demonic dragon, which was as powerful as a void-returned saint, made him worthy of the title of saint. After all, one's cultivation realm was just an illusion. The most important thing was still combat power. He could still be called Saint Siqing. Standing at the pinnacle of Saint Origin world, there were only a handful of people who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Sage Siqing. Jiang Siqing, a rogue cultivator from beyond the Milky Way. Lin Dyer, who was watching all this from a distance, was dumbfounded and could not believe her eyes. These were people from two completely different worlds, yet they were actually involved together? One of them was a widower from the remote and destitute Black Sun space zone, who was only in the nascent soul stage and had a child with him. At most, he was an itinerant cultivator from outside the galaxy who had a relatively fast cultivation speed. The other was a void-returned saint who stood at the pinnacle of Saint Origin world, looking down on all living beings and being on equal footing with the sect masters of divine sects and sacred grounds. But now, these two identities were miraculously combined, shocking and making people tremble at the same time. He's really defeated. He's dead. At this moment, Many powerful figures of the demon race in the pantheon of demons had ugly expressions, unwilling to believe it. Their hearts were filled with sorrow, as if the fox mourned the death of the rabbit. No one was willing to believe or accept it. A long time ago, the abyss demonic dragon had turned into a demon and devoured countless living beings, including the human race and the demon race. It was regarded as a mortal enemy by the demon race and the human race. However, ever since the abyss demonic dragon was controlled by the demon imprisoning immortal jar, it was worshipped by them and became the divine beast guarding the palace. In every battle, no matter what kind of peerless expert it met, even if it was a soul formation or void return cultivator, the abyss demonic dragon only needed to show a little bit of its claws to kill them. In their hearts, the abyss demonic dragon was almost invincible. It was enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with the giants of the sacred grounds, or even surpass them. But now, he was unable to harm Jiang Tian at all even after burning his essence blood and activating his peerless divine weapon. Instead, he was killed with a raise of his hand. How is this possible? The abyss demonic dragon is an experienced half-sage and possesses the noble bloodline of the true dragon. He is extremely talented and has refined the laws of demonic nature. His strength has completely reached the void return stage. Why, he can't even defeat a nascent soul heavenly lord. A soul formation divine lord protector was so frightened that his body trembled, and he could not even stand. At this moment, the upper echelons of the pantheon of demons had extremely ugly expressions. The pantheon of demons wanted to overthrow the Eastern royal family and establish a pantheon of demons where humans and demons were equal, and where demons were the rulers. However, the abyss demonic dragon was almost their greatest trump card. Now he was defeated miserably and might even die. This meant that their painstaking plan was about to fall into a predicament and become a pipe dream. Our sect master came out of seclusion and watched the battle between you and the abyss demonic dragon. He is full of admiration for you. He wants the old man to tell him that he hopes that you can stay in our sect for a few days and talk through the night. A saint from a sacred ground spoke. His status was very respected and was similar to Elder Gu's. However, he was very passionate and respectful towards Jiang Tian, and did not dare to show any arrogance. Fellow Taoist, Jiang's body is truly strong. You are not any weaker than divine powers, dharma arts, demonic nature, and even supreme-grade sacred weapons with your body. I am truly impressed, and would like to invite you to our sect to teach us the Tao of cultivating the body. A grand elder of the divine sect was full of praises for Jiang Tian, and admired him from the bottom of his heart. Do you think I want to fight with my body? I have no choice. I'm very poor and don't have any suitable dharma treasures or Tao weapons. Jiang Tian shook his head helplessly. All the dharma treasures were with Jiang Tian's original body. He did not have a single one, and his pockets were even cleaner than his face. Ah, I see. The Grand Elder was very embarrassed. However, another big shot with a face full of smoke and dust and wearing a long robe with an iron furnace embroidered on the chest immediately brightened his eyes and said with a smile, "Saint, I am Feng Santong, an elder of the Wind Fire sect. Greetings, fellow Taoist. I would like to inform you that our sect is good at forging weapons, and has 3 divine blacksmiths and more than 100 divine blacksmiths. Our craftsmanship is the best in the divine origin world. If you need any dharma treasures or Tao robes, you can come to our sect and take them." As soon as he said that, everyone looked at Feng Santong with envy. This Feng Santong really knows how to play along. This invitation is exactly what Jiang Xiqing wanted. Although our sect is not a blacksmithing sect, we do have some Tao weapons and sacred weapons. In order to win Xiqing over, we can give them away. It's just that we were too late, and let him take the lead. In terms of blacksmithing, your standards may not even be comparable to my pinky finger. Jiang Tian said arrogantly and disinterestedly. Hearing that, Feng Santong was also embarrassed. He forced a smile and said, "So you are proficient in blacksmithing? That's great. Our sect has many blacksmithing materials and many heavenly treasures. You can take them and use them to forge dharma treasures according to your needs." Jiang Tian ignored him and looked at Fairy Qingjue calmly. He smiled coquettishly and said, "Thank you, Fairy, for lending me your sacred weapon during the battle. Although I did not accept it, I am still grateful. I would like to invite Fairy to have a drink and go on a scenic tour. I wonder what Fairy thinks about that. Chapter 1939. This he is so impulsive. This is almost equivalent to saying dual cultivation Tao. How impulsive? Presumably, Fairy Qingjue will be furious and leave in a huff. Lin Dyer couldn't believe it, and then she thought secretly. Because in her impression, Fairy Qingjue was like a high and mighty goddess, awe-inspiring and inviolable. Everyone's face also revealed a somewhat ambiguous expression, and they smiled embarrassedly. However, to everyone's surprise, especially Lin Dyer, Fairy Qingjue smiled sweetly and said without hesitation, "Okay, then it will be my honor." Lin Dyer was in a predicament. Then, under the crowd's incredulous gazes, Jiang Tian and Fairy Qingjue left together, one after the other. Earth Year 2022, November 25th. Sheng Yuan Calendar, 139,653 years. I, Jiang Tian, under the eyes of millions of people, killed 4 divine transformation realm experts of the pantheon of demons in the Eastern Gorge territory of the Eastern Empire, fought against the halberd with his bare hands, and slaughtered the ancient demon dragon. The news spread. The entire Saint Origin world was shocked. Since then, everyone in the world didn't know Jiang Xiqing. Almost at the same time, in the place where the Lin family's ancestor was in seclusion, as Jiang Tian's aura became ethereal, he looked handsome and otherworldly, like an immortal from the 9 heavens descending to the mortal realm. A dazzling rule of law that looked like divine light and divine splendor shot out. It was untraceable and at an incredible angle, beheaded a divine emperor of the demon clan who had an extremely strong physical body, and was holding a trident made of 3 bones. This brutal battle had finally come to an end. With a fist mark on his chest, and his Taoist robe torn and tattered in the battle, the Lin family's ancestor, Lin Taching, slowly descended from the sky and landed on a mountain peak. He let out a long sigh, and his eyes were slightly unfocused as he looked around, as if he had fallen into a dream. Within a radius of 1,000 miles, mountains crumbled, palaces collapsed, magic formations were damaged, and all kinds of restrictive spells were torn to pieces. The remaining natural laws were still clashing with each other, bursting with bolts of lightning and striking on the scorched earth. Billowing 5-colored poisonous smoke broke through the bloody mist that lingered for a long time, making this place look like hell. The place of seclusion that he had painstakingly built for 100 years had been completely destroyed. Yes, everything that happened today was simply a nightmare for him. Just like every day for decades, he took pills, refined the source, and persevered in his attempt to break through to the half-saint realm. Suddenly, the place where he was cultivating in seclusion shook. It was forcibly broken open by a one-time explosive magical device, such as the Green Thunder Talisman. Then 100 nascent soul cultivators and 4 soul formation Fey Lords appeared silently and attacked together. The Dharma treasures and Tao weapons tore through the void, bringing with them endless killing intent that seemed to cover the sky and cover the earth. He didn't hesitate to burn his life essence, and in an instant he became as thin as a bag of bones, barely withstanding the attack. The pain of burning his life essence was like a knife scraping his bones, and like being fried in oil. It was simply worse than being dead. With this ruthless decisiveness, and the sacrifice of his life essence, Lin Taching barely withstood this wave of attack. But compared to the attacks that followed, this wave of attack paled in comparison. There was the ice hornless dragon that spewed out the natural law of ice and snow that could freeze the earth, freeze the river, and cut off the vitality of all living things within 1,000 miles. There was the red serpent demon that spat out 5-colored poisonous smoke. One drop of it could tear apart a nascent soul cultivator's flesh, and destroy a spirit embryo. One drop of it could corrode the natural law, pollute the territory, and affect the physical body and divine soul. There was also the thunder-red toad that roared like thunder, shaking the divine soul and disturbing the mind. The species of the demon race were complex, and each kind of demon had different divine powers because of their different ancestral bloodlines. Just defending against one of these innate divine abilities would take the human cultivators a great deal of effort. What was even more frightening was that with so many different types of demon race attacking together, their attacks could be easily combined and varied. They also had different attack effects, making it impossible to guard against. Lin Taching used his trump card to resist most of the attacks, but he was still contaminated by the poisonous gas, which suppressed his power. He was also punched by a divine lord, which almost cracked his divine treasures. But the most terrifying ones were the foxes who were proficient in illusions. They could trigger the dark memories in the heart, which could lead to the invasion of the demons and the counterattack of the demons in the heart. When they launched their spiritual attacks, Lin Taching only felt that the suffocation, humiliation, anger, and frustration he had experienced in his life came one after another. He died, his family was besieged by the feudal lords, and the Eastern royal family looked on with indifference. His dream of the future 3 generations falling into depravity, and the poverty of 10 generations was so real that it felt like a dream. All the past and illusions that touched the weakness of his heart were displayed in front of him one by one. They were like a dream, but also real. Once he fell into them, he could not pull himself out. Even though Lin Taching had lived for thousands of years, and was an experienced soul formation cultivator, he almost fell into them because of his anger and fear. Fortunately, he spent 50 years of the income of the entire fief of Zhenyuan, to buy a divine elixir of Kangsu from the Hall of Ancient Medicine. It was not only priceless, but its effect was not undeserved. After swallowing it, his mind finally regained a bit of clarity. He pulled himself out of the illusions and returned to reality, barely avoiding a wave of attacks that followed. Even so, his body and divine treasures were still pierced by countless Dharma treasures and arrows. He operated his cultivation method with difficulty, and barely managed to recover. However, his cultivation level dropped rapidly from the late stage of the soul formation realm to the middle stage. But unexpectedly, the spiritual attacks of the demon clan evoked the tragic past, created unfortunate illusions, and triggered the inner demons. They did not stop. Instead, they surged even more fiercely, and each wave was stronger than the previous one. In a trance, he fell into all kinds of beautiful past and illusions. There were illusions where his deceased wife came back to life and they walked in the world hand in hand. They lived in the same room for 10 generations, and their children surrounded them. There were also illusions where he returned to his childhood and reunited with his parents and siblings. They lived a peaceful and happy life. There were also illusions where he drew his sword and raised his eyebrows while surrounded by thousands of soldiers. He destroyed the rotten and weak Eastern royal family, and established a new dynasty. He wanted to conquer the world, and enjoy the beautiful dreams of being worshipped by the people. There were even illusions where he broke through the void returning, and the Tao reunion level, ascended to the deity realm in the 9 heavens, and became a perfected immortal. He lived a long life and lived as long as the world. Lin Taching was one of the founders of the Eastern enemy state. He was one of the founders of the country. He used to fight for the world and struggled to survive. Therefore, his ability to withstand pressure and negative emotions was very strong. He was extremely numb to suffering. However, he could not resist or control the happy illusions. He knew that he was trapped in the illusions, but he still couldn't get out. He urgently needed a divine elixir of Kangsu to break through the illusions and return to reality. However, he didn't have it anymore. Lin Taching swayed back and forth between ecstasy, happiness, despair, and fear. He thought there was no way he could turn the situation around. I, Jiang Tian, was like an immortal descending from the 9 heavens. I stepped on the air and defeated the enemy with my fingers and palms, as if I were cutting melons and vegetables. I pushed forward like a giant stone crushing chicken eggs. Chapter 1940. No matter what kind of monster race's magic, poison, wind, or fire, none of them could do anything to me, Jiang Tian. No matter what kind of Dharma treasure, Tao artifact, or even saint weapon, none of them could harm a single hair on his body. Not even the terrifying soul attacks could do anything to him. In Lin Tachong's eyes, it was a one-sided massacre when Jiang Tian fought with the enemy. Dozens of demon cultivators, who had strong corporeal bodies and were known for their strong defensive abilities, were sliced in half at their waists. Even their spirit embryos and divine treasures were instantly destroyed. The nascent soul cultivators of the monster race with powerful divine powers and powerful bloodlines were crushed by his palm. Their bodies, armors and divine souls were all destroyed. Even a few soul formation grand cultivators of the monster race couldn't withstand more than a few attacks. Often, after a short while, they would be beheaded by a casual wave of sword light. In the end, the leader of the divine lords of the monster race was infinitely close to the half-step void return stage, and could even be called a half-saint. His power was on par with his own, and he activated his ancestral bloodline's innate abilities to escape at an unparalleled speed. A few peak-stage nascent soul cultivators of the Lin family, who had come to support him, were easily broken through. However, Jiang Tian only raised his hand and cast a supreme domain. The powerful divine master of the monster race was instantly frozen in the air. No matter how much he screamed, how much blood he burned, how much essence his essence chi boiled and how much dharma laws surged, he was still like a fly trapped in amber. He couldn't move or struggle at all. They could only watch as Jiang Tian waved his finger and beheaded the demon king. Is he really the divine master of my family? Recalling the Taoist Jiang Tian, Lin Takong had a vague feeling that he was like an immortal god who stood high above the 9 heavens. He was invulnerable, indestructible, and invincible. When Jiang Tian was recuperating Dongfang Ying's physique, achieving a balance between yin and yang, carrying yin and yang, the red and white yin and yang fish, transforming into a pillar of light that shot into the sky, the alarmed Lin Takong had come out of seclusion, looked at Jiang Tian from afar, and instructed Lin Hanqing. Mr. Zhang's divine powers and cultivation are unfathomable. He is a once-in-a-thousand-years genius. Hanqing, you must treat him with respect. Seeing him is like seeing an ancestral patriarch and treating him like a parent. It could be said that Lin Takong had already seen how extraordinary Jiang Tian was back then. However, after the battle, Lin Takong realized that he had seriously underestimated Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian was not a rare genius in the Eastern Empire. He was a powerful man who could overlook the entire Saint Origin world. He even suspected that Jiang Tian was the reincarnation of an immortal from the 9 heavens. After all, Jiang Tian was too young. According to the era of Saint Origin world, he was in his 20s, the same generation as Lin Yang and Lin Dai. How could there be such a person in this world? Lin Takong looked at Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes. His nose was tall and straight. His hair was black without any gray. His face was handsome and charming. His feather robe was spotless. In his temperament, there was the maturity and steadiness of a middle-aged man and the carefreeness of a young man. His eyes were emotionless, mature and cold as if they were eternally immovable. Lin Takong's heart skipped a beat. He felt that Jiang Tian's temperament had changed. It was completely different from the last time he saw him. The feeling that Jiang Tian was the reincarnation of an immortal was even stronger. Previously, Jiang Tian gave him the feeling that he was surrounded by worldly affairs. He treated people with generosity and kindness. He was amiable, just like an ordinary person. But now he felt that Jiang Tian was very far away from him. It was as if Jiang Tian was an immortal from the 9 heavens. Lin Takong dared not delay. He flew to Jiang Tian's side and bowed to him like a disciple. He said in fear and trepidation, "Thank you, Sage Siqing, for saving the old man. The old man is so touched that he will never forget it." Of course, he could tell that Jiang Tian was a nascent soul stage cultivator. But that was not important. Jiang Tian was able to kill over 100 nascent soul stage cultivators and 4 soul formation stage grand cultivators of the demon race, including a grand cultivator at the peak of the soul formation stage who was infinitely close to a half-saint. That had already proved his strength. If he could not be called a saint of the void returning realm, how could he be called a saint of the void returning realm? You and I are destined to be together. This is how it should be. Jiang Tian's lips were thin, and his black gem-like eyes were deep and indifferent. His handsomeness gave people a feeling of alienation. His face was expressionless as he accepted Lin Takong's bow. His sleeves were fluttering, and his breath was ethereal. At this time, Jiang Tian's face suddenly changed. His eyes flashed with coldness. He said in a cold voice, "I Jiang Tian, that bastard, dared to provoke Fairy Qingjue. What a frivolous and despicable man. If that's the case, wouldn't it be a disgrace to our names? I'll take out my sword and kill him." What? What he means is that he is just a clone of Jiang Xiqing. Beside him, Lin Takong, who had just stood up, was so shocked that his face changed drastically. He could not stand still and almost fell to the ground. He is a part of me. He cannot be erased. Jiang Tian's true body transmitted his voice over, reverberating in the depths of Jiang Tian's mind. He also said helplessly, "This guy is purposely making things difficult for us. However, he did a good job. He killed the Abyss demonic dragon, Niu Benning, and a few other divine lords of the demon race. It's a mixed blessing. Don't be angry anymore. I, Jiang Tian, killed the Abyss demonic dragon and Niu Benning." Jiang Tian lowered his head and murmured in disbelief. Then he waved his sleeves and said proudly, "Next time, leave the most dangerous mission to me." "Okay," Jiang Tian's real body said. "I will call Jiang Tian back immediately. You join me too. With our current magic power, we won't be able to sustain our Tao for long. We have to merge with our original bodies." "Okay." Jiang Tian nodded slightly and raised his hand to envelop Lin Takong. The clear and misty law of green would form a healing talisman. Every light spot in the talisman was as bright as a star. It carried the aura of creation as it fell on Lin Takong's wound. In the next moment, Jiang Tian turned into a brilliant streak of light and streaked across the sky, heading into the distance. This isn't his only doppelganger. There is another one called Jiang Tian. He has already killed Niu Benning and the other divine lords of the demon race. He even killed the Abyss demonic dragon. Lin Takong stared at the beam of light that Jiang Tian had turned into in shock. His heart was in turmoil, unable to calm down for a long time, as if he had seen a ghost. He was so shocked that he even forgot to thank Jiang Tian for healing his wound. He even forgot to send him off. How powerful will the real Jiang Tian be after the three of them merge? I'm afraid that no one in the entire Saint Origin world can stop him. What virtue has my Lin clan accumulated? What virtue has my Lin clan accumulated to receive the help and protection of such a peerless powerhouse? From now on, I have nothing to worry about." Lin Takong had mixed feelings when he thought of this. Shock, relief, and the ecstasy of surviving a disaster filled his heart. After a long time, he finally recovered from his shock, and he noticed to his shock that the sunken fist mark on his chest had already recovered. His broken bones had been reconnected, his muscles had grown, and even the remnant laws of the demon clan that lingered within his body had been shattered and obliterated before being expelled from his body. He only needed to consume some healing and nourishing medicinal pills to quickly return to his peak state. Chapter 1941. On a large river that looked like a jade ribbon, an exquisitely decorated pleasure boat was slowly moving. The surrounding mountain ranges were undulating, and the green hills were like the flowers in the distance. Nearby, there were flowers and trees, and the fragrance of orchids wafted through the air. It was a picturesque scene. This area was located in the southern part of the Duke of Eastern Gorge's territory. Within a radius of 1,000 miles, there were 2 high-grade spirit veins. After being strengthened by a formation, the spirit energy was even denser, refreshing. This was the rented land of the 9 Mysteries sect in the Eastern Empire. It was not a cave residence for cultivation, but a palace garden where the disciples of the sect could rest and play. In an elegant hall on the pleasure boat, Fairy Qingjue was sitting on the railing. She could see the calm river outside the window. She was dressed in white and her features were picturesque. Her temperament was otherworldly. On the table in front of her, there were spirit fruits, snacks, and wine. Opposite her, Jiang Tian supported his chin with his hand and unceremoniously put the snacks into his mouth. He looked at Fairy Qingjue with infatuation. Why is Saint Xiqing looking at me like that? Is there a flower on my face? Fairy Qingjue blushed when she felt Jiang Tian's gaze on her. She lowered her head and asked like a delicate flower shining on water. Oh my God, is this still our Fairy Qingjue? The many-maids standing respectfully at the side looked at each other in disbelief. Fairy Qingjue was powerful and respected. She was an overlord in the Saint Origin world. She was not inferior to men, and she would never say that when she was with men. Aha! Of course, there is no flower on your face. Jiang Tian raised his cup and took a sip of the jade fire wine. He said with tender eyes, "But you are prettier than a flower." Is he flirting with her so directly? I wonder how the saintess will react. The maids were stunned again. They could not believe it. The men that Fairy Qingjue usually saw were either servile like Li Yichen, mature and prudent like Nan Gongyu who kept a distance, or enemies of life and death. When had she ever been teased by Jiang Tian like this before? Instantly, her maiden heart pounded wildly like a fawn running around in a frenzy. "Young master, you must be joking." Fairy Qingjue smiled faintly, her beautiful face blushing. Her beauty was unparalleled. "Young master?" The surrounding maidservants were stunned once more, unable to believe their eyes. "How is this a joke? Fairy, please understand. I'm doing this out of sincerity." At this moment, the voice of Jiang Tian's true body sounded in his mind. However, Jiang Tian was still calm and composed. After finishing the last scene, he revealed a sorrowful expression and said with a gloomy expression, "I fell in love at first sight when I saw you, and I fell in love when I saw you again. However, I know that I shouldn't reveal these feelings to you. Instead, I should hide them in the bottom of my heart and silently look up to you because I'm not worthy." Seeing Jiang Tian's sorrowful expression and the deep sorrow in his eyes, Fairy Qingjue actually felt a sense of sadness and sympathy. At the same time, he was also puzzled. This was because the impression that Jiang Tian gave her was that he was arrogant and unruly. Of course, with Jiang Tian's strength, he indeed had the qualifications to do so. She couldn't imagine that Jiang Tian would actually say something like, "I'm not worthy." In her confusion, Fairy Qingjue couldn't help but ask, "Young master, your bloodline is extraordinary. Your talent is extraordinary, and your cultivation is heaven-defying. You are powerful and not inferior to me at all. May I know why you say this?" "Sigh, it's a long story." Jiang Tian only let out a deep sigh, feeling even more gloomy and vicissitudes of life. Could it be that young master is unduly humble and ashamed of his inferiority, because he was born in the Black Sun star zone outside the central galaxy? Fairy Qingjue guessed and smiled with some understanding. "Young master, you don't have to be like this. Heroes don't care about their origins. You already have such strength, so who cares about your background?" "That's not it." Passing Jiang Tian covered his face with his hands and sighed. "I'm a widower, and I have a daughter. How can I be worthy of you, Fairy? However, everyone loves beauty. Although I'm rude, it's out of my sincere admiration. I hope Fairy won't take it to heart." "So that's the case." Fairy Qingjue lowered her head and pondered for a while before saying, "This is nothing. Cultivators have long lifespans. Some cultivators who marry mortal women have wives who die early. When they find a suitable Dao companion and remarry, they don't just have children. They have many grandchildren. The marriage of cultivators is completely different from that of ordinary people." Passing Jiang Tian was overjoyed, and his eyes lit up. He grabbed Fairy Qingjue's hand and said hoarsely, "Fairy, do you really think so? You, how can you be so reckless? You're really a lecher. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by others? You're known as a saint. You're virtuous and talented, and you're praised by the world." Fairy Qingjue was so embarrassed that her face turned red. She struggled a few times, but seeing that she couldn't break free, she just let him hold on to her. "What's so good about being a saint? What's there to be afraid of when the world laughs at me and bears infamy?" Passing Jiang Tian caressed that warm, jade-like hand and panted emotionally. "If I can get close to you, even if I die, it's worth it." Don't say such silly things." Fairy Qingjue's head drooped slightly, and her waterfall-like hair fell naturally, revealing a section of her snow-white neck. Her snow-white skin made one's imagination run wild. Her eyelids trembled slightly, and she was both angry and happy at the same time. "How old is your daughter? What does she like to eat and play? After I return to the sect to report the situation of this battle to my father, I can go out and travel for a while. I can also meet this child. She was already starting to want to develop a relationship with Jiang Beibei. In this era, she's only 4 or 5 years old. Passing Jiang Tian smiled and said, she likes to eat and play all kinds of strange things. She's a very simple child. For her 5 years old, it's easy to develop a relationship. Fairy Qingjue's heart skipped a beat, and the pressure on her decreased slightly. However, at this moment, passing Jiang Tian suddenly let go of her hand. He stood up and bowed deeply, saying apologetically, Sai, the Eastern Empire is about to fall into chaos. This concerns the safety of the Zhenyuan Marquis residence. I can't stay for long. I'll take my leave now. I hope Fairy can forgive me. Ah, you're leaving now? For some reason, Fairy Qingjue actually felt a little reluctant, and stood up to send him off. She walked out of the hall with passing Jiang Tian, and came to the bow of the ship. With a gentle smile, she said, if you need my help to quell the rebellion in the Eastern Empire, just say the word. The 9 Mysteries sect and I will do our best. What kind of bewitching potion did this person feed our holy maiden? When the ladies heard this, they were in disbelief. With the strength of the 9 Mysteries sect, it would not be difficult for them to crush any force in the Eastern Empire, and even annihilate the Eastern Empire's royal family. However, one should know that the 9 Mysteries sect was high up in the sky, and had always kept itself clean. It had never interfered in worldly disputes, especially not in the affairs of the imperial court. This was an iron rule set by the founder of the 9 Mysteries sect. Fairy Qingjue's attitude was simply unprecedented. Qingjue, you're so good to me. Passing Jiang Tian suddenly turned around and looked at Fairy Qingjue lovingly. Chapter 1942. Isn't this what I should do? Fairy Qingjue was very close to Jiang Tian, and she could feel a strong masculine aura. It was masculine and wild. It was completely different from the otherworldly aura of other cultivators. It was as if other male cultivators were tea, and Jiang Tian was a cup of strong wine. He had the power to make people blush and their hearts beat faster. How can I accept such a great favor from a beauty? I can't repay it even if I die 100 times. Jiang Tian murmured as tears welled up in his eyes. Suddenly, he wrapped his arms around Fairy Qingjue's slender waist, and pulled her into his embrace, deeply kissing her panic-stricken cherry lips. Young master, you, Fairy Qingjue mumbled. She was still struggling at first, pounding her fists on Jiang Tian's shoulders. But gradually, her fists landed on Jiang Tian's shoulders. She opened her palms and hugged his back, as if she wanted Jiang Tian to kiss her deeper. Let the 9 Mysteries sect announce to the world that we will hold a grand wedding. After a short moment, I, Jiang Tian, let go of this woman and reluctantly bid her farewell. Moreover, he instructed, this matter is not a joke. We have to think about it at length. Fairy Qingjue was extremely embarrassed. Jiang Tian used the Kuanpeng's speed, and turned into a beam of light, converging with Jiang Tian's original body. The taste of the saintess is indeed not bad. How delightful. The corners of his mouth curled into a mocking smile as he gloated. That's right. I'll leave you with a debt of gratitude. Let's see how you repay it. Perhaps, the entire 9 Mysteries sect will become your enemy. Eastern Empire, capital city, deep inside the palace. Emperor Eastern Lu had his hands behind his back and stared blankly at the 1,000 miles water mirror, which no longer transmitted any images. He remained motionless like a block of wood. Father, may I know why you summoned me so late at night? A man walked over and bowed deeply. He looked to be in his late 20s, with sharp eyebrows and bright eyes. His cheeks were slightly sunken, his nose was high, and his lips were thin. His temperament was gentle, and he had an obvious air of nobility. His robe was black with a few spots of crimson, but the material itself was extraordinary. His hands were behind his back, and there was a long sword at his waist. The scabbard was dark gold, and there was a 5-clawed dragon on it. Crown Prince Dongfangding. His tone was normal and did not sound harsh, but he gave people a vague feeling that he was not as easy to get along with as he looked. He seemed approachable and gentle, but in fact he had a high and mighty attitude. It was just that he did not have to show it at all times. The battle at 100 Flowers Peak is over. What do you think? Eastern Lu seemed to have woken up from a dream. He turned his head and revealed a kind smile, seemingly calm. However, his slightly trembling sleeve still revealed his unstable and shocked state of mind. Reporting to father, in my opinion, Jiang Xiqing is a good sword. Dong Fengding pondered and said, I'm just worried that Jiang Xiqing's meteoric rise to the Saint Realm is a sign of a great calamity. Why? Eastern Lu asked, as if he was testing him. Dong Fengding's noble air was tinged with a sense of carefreeness. His aura was much stronger than that of the second prince, Dong Fengli. He spoke freely and confidently. In my humble opinion, there are 3 major imbalances within the empire. First, there is an imbalance within the feudal vassals. Apart from Duke Nan, the 3 dukes and the Marquis of Purple Robes are the leaders of the feudal vassals. They have troops and strong financial resources, like a country within a country. Moreover, they ignore the royal family and wantonly annex other weaker feudal vassals. From this point of view, the strong rise of the Lin family loyal to the Marquis of Zhenyuan will help the feudal vassals keep each other in check and stabilize the country. Eastern Lu nodded and did not speak, his face revealing a look of approval. Dong Fengding's train of thought was clear and unhurried, as if he had already considered this question thoroughly. He continued unhurriedly, Second, there is an imbalance between the feudal vassals and the royal family. Nowadays, the feudal vassals are powerful and ignore the royal family. They do not accept tributes and do not listen to orders. The royal family is weak. Whether it is financial strength, military strength, or even top-notch cultivators who raise offerings, they are already slightly inferior when compared to the feudal vassals. If Jiang Xiqing becomes a part of the feudal vassals' power, to my eastern royal family she is mortal enemy. Dong Fengding's gaze was sharp as he looked directly at the emperor, Eastern Lu, and said almost word by word. Continue. Eastern Lu's eyes flashed with a sharp cold light as he said in a low voice. Third, there is an imbalance between the secular world and the hidden sections. The royal family of the secular world occupies the majestic royal capital and controls the divine array. Their orders are like thunder. Within the 4 fiefs, the feudal vassals tremble, the aristocratic families are terrified, and the common people are all subservient to the emperor's orders. However, the hidden sects are high and mighty. They consider themselves to be immortals and Buddhas. They absorb faith, recruit talents, and possess sacred weapons and scriptures. They can destroy the royal family with a snap of their fingers. Dong Fengding said in a low voice. If Jiang Xiqing joins the sects, or even directly establishes a sect in our territory, our eastern family. He stopped speaking, as if there was no need to continue. However, Eastern Lu also had a look of understanding and did not ask further. Instead, he quickly changed the topic and said in a low voice, Lin Hanqing has already sent news. The many operations against the Marquis of Zhenyuan's Lin family this time are the joint efforts of the Marquis of Purple Robes and the Pantheon of Demons. My son, what do you think of the next operation? Is the evidence conclusive? Dong Fengding asked. Conclusive. The Lin family has a consecrator, who is a spy planted by the Marquis of Purple Robes. He has already been controlled. Moreover, the deity of Divine Lord Niuben has been captured by Jiang Xiqing. Basically, the Marquis of Purple Robes and all the arrangements behind him are already clear as day. Eastern Lu said in a low voice. I believe that speed is the most important thing in war. Immediately eliminate the Marquis of Purple Robes and his vassal feudal vassals in the south, and intimidate the world. Dong Fengding did not hesitate. Then his eyes flashed and he said in a low voice, Put Jiang Xiqing in an important position, appoint her as the imperial advisor, and hold a grand ceremony. This good killing sword, at least for this period of time, must be firmly in the hands of the Eastern royal family, and suppress the aristocratic families that have disloyal intentions. That makes sense. However, to eliminate the Marquis of Purple Robes, are you going, or? Eastern Lu asked. Everything is for the benefit of the country. I dare not speak rashly. Please make the decision, father. Dong Fengding bowed deeply. You and Dong Fengli will act together. Lead the many cultivators of the royal family, and rushed to the Marquis of Purple Robes overnight to kill him. Eastern Lu said in a cold voice. Black stone forest. Corpses were everywhere, the smell of blood filled the sky, broken Dharma treasures floated in the air, and fragments of flying boats and cloud towers were piled up on the ground. Between heaven and earth, the waves of Dharma power were strong, and there were even remnants of Dharma laws that clashed wildly, exploding into terrifying bolts of lightning. This place was located in the middle of the fief of the southern Gongfangs and the Lin family of the Jinyuan Marquis. A fortress had been set up, and it was protected by a divine array. Under the pursuit of the three powerful demons, Fang Guoyu took Jiang Beibei and many members of the Lin family, and ran for tens of thousands of miles. The Cloud Tower flying boat had run out of energy, and could only hide in the fortress, and the guards here had already resisted the pursuit and attacks of the demons, waiting for reinforcements to arrive. Kill. Hold on. Miss Fang, we can't hold on any longer. We must hold on. We've already sent a message to the southern Gongfangs. Reinforcements will be here soon. Fang Guoyu, who was covered in blood and shattered armor, led Guo Chuandong and the other cultivators to hide behind the protective barriers and bunkers of the formations. They constantly unleashed their magical treasures and unleashed streaks of light with great difficulty. The streaks of light shot through the air and struck the birds that were covered in shining metallic luster and steel-like scales. Their wings blotted out the sky, and their claws were sharp enough to tear through boulders. These giant birds were called stone-cracking birds, and they were an ancient species between beasts and birds. They were as strong as dragons and had thick skin, but they were extremely fast and their claws were sharp enough to tear apart Dharma laws. They spat out thunderbolts and controlled wind and fire. An adult stone-cracking bird was comparable to a human nascent soul heavenly lord without cultivating, and many of them had already reached the nascent soul level. And there were more than 10,000 stone-cracking birds circling around the black stone forest. Looking at Jiang Beibei, who was hiding in Mrs. Fang's arms and trembling with fear, and despair appeared on Fang Guoyu's face. She sighed in her heart. Are we going to die here today? Chapter 1943. Those giant birds were called stone-cracking birds. They were a mutant species between beasts and birds. They were as strong as dragons and had thick skin. However, their wings could break the laws of dimensions and they could fly extremely fast. Their claws were sharp enough to tear apart Dharma treasures. They could spit out thunderbolts and control wind and fire. An adult stone-cracking bird was as powerful as a nascent soul heavenly lord without cultivating. Besides, many of them had already reached the nascent soul level. And in the area of the black stone forest, there were thousands or even tens of thousands of stone splitters circling above. A hint of despair appeared on Fang Guoyu's face as she looked at Jiang Beibei, who was hiding in Madame Fang's arms and trembling with fear. She sighed in her heart. Are we going to die here today? Even though they could hold on for a while with the fortress and the divine array, and the Dharma treasures released by Fang Guoyu, and the others would kill some of the stone-cracking birds nearby. If things went on for a long time, the Dharma powers of both the array and the cultivators would run out eventually. By then, everyone would probably die in the hands of the wolves. Yes, everyone would die. On the outside, there were 3 Demon Clan Soul Formation Grand Cultivators holding the line. They stood proudly high in the sky, their demonic vertical pupils shining with cold light. They looked down at the fortress below without any emotion. It was as if Fang Guoyu and the others were still fighting back bravely. It was as if they were just little white rabbits struggling futilely under the claws of a ferocious tiger. Boom! The divine formation trembled, and a beam of light shot out. It was sharp and piercing, and it crushed an adult stone splitter bird into pieces. Guo Chuandong, who was controlling the divine array, had his arms torn open from the impact. He gritted his teeth and shouted, Miss Fang, we can't hold on any longer. There are only 3 array formation crystals left. We can only hold on for half an incense stick's time. The leader of the cultivators guarding the fortress also said anxiously, Miss Fang, our talismans are already shining and our Dharma treasures are about to run out of Dharma treasures. But there are countless stone-cracking birds. If the Golden Sand City can't help, we won't make it. We've already sent messages to the Golden Sand City with our immortal will when we left the forest. But even with my father's fastest speed and the best Dharma treasures of the Golden Sand City, it'll still take half a day to get here, Fang Goyu said with a trembling voice. What? Everyone's eyes were filled with despair. The imperial court is as deep as the sea, and the hearts of men are as sharp as swords. The aristocratic families of the feudal lords had to guard against the wrath of the emperor. They had to guard against the internal strife of their peers, plundering and running. Below them, they had to pacify the common people and suppress the bandits and rogues. Putting aside the fact that we're not allowed to have a single day of rest, it's better to walk on the edge of a blade, trembling with fear. If we're not careful, our family will be destroyed. Mrs. Fang's heart was filled with sorrow. Tears flowed out of her eyes. She hugged Jiang Beibei tightly and asked softly, Beibei, are you afraid? I'm not afraid. Auntie, don't worry. My dad will definitely come and save us. Jiang Beibei seemed to be full of confidence in Jiang Tian. Everyone just laughed, treating it as a child's naive words. They all knew that Jiang Tian and Lin Hanqing had already arrived at the Purple Marquis residence as guests. It would take them at least 3 days to arrive here. By the time he arrived, everyone had already turned into dust. Miss Fang, the situation is urgent. Let's abandon the fortress, protect Miss Fang and Mrs. Lin with all the magical equipment we have, and break out of the siege with Jiang Beibei. Guo Chuandong suddenly said in a deep voice. Endless determination appeared on his face. He had met Jiang Tian on planet Juma, but he didn't know the inside story. He had always regarded Jiang Tian as his fellow countryman. He admired Jiang Tian, and was a bit close to him. In his opinion, Jiang Tian and Jiang Beibei were all from the Black Sun Galaxy. They were also the hope of the Black Sun Galaxy shining in the universe one day. So, he would protect Jiang Beibei, even if he had to die. Yes, all the soldiers of the Stone Forest Fortress are willing to risk their lives to escort Miss Fang and Mrs. Lin out of the siege. Yes. The general of the fortress also said generously. He was fearless in the face of death. Even if we have to die, the cultivators of the other fortresses, even if they were only golden core cultivators, gritted their teeth and shouted. Their blood was boiling and endless determination flashed in their eyes. It was evident that Nan and Gongfang Jinlong were indeed good at commanding soldiers. Well, a hint of struggle flashed in Fang Goyu's eyes. There was a flying ship in the fortress at the moment. It was a military Dharma artifact used to send messages. It was so fast that it could get rid of the soul formation cultivators. However, the flying ship was extremely light and delicate. Its space was limited and it could only accommodate 2 people. But it would be impossible to take the other families and cultivators of the Lin Mansion away. Fine. Let's delay it a bit longer. If it doesn't work, this is the only way. Fang Goyu heaved a sigh. There was dead silence. Suddenly, a young man in a luxurious outfit stepped forward and pointed at Jiang Beibei with bloodshot eyes. Why do you have to take this girl away? She's not the descendant of the Lin family. She's just the daughter of an alien elder. He pushed out the boy in his arms and looked at Madame Lin pleadingly. He sobbed. Sister, I beg you take the child away. He's the only descendant of our family. When Madame Lin heard this, tears welled up in her beautiful eyes and the rims of her eyes turned red. The attack of the demons this time affected a lot of people. Apart from the 100-Flower Peak, the Lin Mansion, and where the ancestral patriarch was in seclusion, Mrs. Lin's family was also attacked by demons. However, they were not so lucky. They had already been brazenly exterminated. The young man in luxurious clothes was Mrs. Lin's brother. He had brought his son to the Jinyuan Marquis residence as a guest, and was lucky enough to escape. But if he stayed here and died in the hands of the stone-cracking birds and the demons, it would mean that the Lin family had no more descendants. Guo Chuandong was speechless when he heard that. Just as Mrs. Lin's brother said, no matter how much Lin Hanqing valued Jiang Tian was just an alien elder. There was a difference between master and servant, and there was an order of seniority. It was understandable that Madame Lin wanted to protect her family. But unexpectedly, Madame Lin nodded in the next moment and took Fang Goyu's hand, saying, All right. I'm not leaving. You can take the 2 children with you. The breaking sky flying boat will be lighter. There's a higher chance of escaping. Sister. Madam. For a moment, everyone cried out in surprise. Their faces were filled with shock and disbelief. Guo Chuandong didn't think that Mrs. Lin would value Jiang Tian so much. Just as they were in a stalemate, Jiang Beibei suddenly raised her hand and pointed outside the fortress. Look. Everyone raised their heads and saw a dazzling golden light coming from afar at lightning speed, accompanied by the sound of breaking through the air. The dazzling light paused and revealed a young man in long robes. His features were handsome, and his eyes were deep and weathered. He had the charm of time. It was Jiang Tian. It's Mr. Jiang. Everyone cheered in joy. Chapter 1944. Jiang Tian's face was calm, without any ripples. Without saying a word, he raised his hand and pushed. A gust of destructive power swept out. Boundless laws of nature surged out like raging waves, possessing an unstoppable force, instantly enveloping an area with a radius of 50 kilometers. In this area, countless stone splitter birds were like paper. They were crushed by the power of the laws, and some of them were even turned into smoke or ashes. What's going on? Didn't the message say that Jiang Xiqing had been led to the 100 Flowers Peak? It would take at least a few days for her to arrive. But he's here now. Run. This man's strength is incredible. I heard that even Sir God Nyoben was killed. Even the abyssal demon dragon was beheaded by him. The Sir Gods of the monster clan suddenly changed their expressions and exclaimed in unison. They looked at each other, and then without saying a word, they flew into the distance in streaks of light. The remaining stone-cracking birds saw that their masters were running away, and they disappeared in the blink of an eye. Jiang Tian shook his sleeves and entered the fortress. Jiang Beibei jumped into Jiang Tian's arms and cried, "Dad, you're here. You scared me to death." She was very nervous because of the crisis. But after all, the people around her were not her family. Even though she was extremely frightened, she kept calm and did not cause any trouble for them. At that moment, she could only let go in front of her father. What's there to be afraid of? As long as I'm here, everything will be fine. Jiang Tian stroked his daughter's head and put her on the ground. She walked to Mrs. Lin and saluted. "Madam, fortunately, I didn't let you down. Lin Dyer has been saved and the ancestor is safe. The Marquis and the young Marquis are not hurt at all." "Mr. Jiang, how did you do it?" Mrs. Lin's eyes widened in disbelief. "Mr. Jiang, you're indeed Mr. Jiang." Feng Guoyu also looked at Jiang Tian with eyes full of adoration. "Mr. Jiang is the same as me. We're both from the Black Sun Star Zone. We took the same empty carriage from the Juma Star to the Gentle Wind Courier Station in the Saint Origin world. Their relationship is ironclad." Guo Chuandong was even more proud. He was so excited that the fat on his body was trembling. He said proudly to a fortress guard battle general beside him, "I see." The general immediately looked at Guo Chuandong in a new light. Everyone was filled with admiration for Jiang Tian. After all, the demons attacked at the same time at the 100 Flowers Peak, the Lin Mansion, and the ancestor Lin Takong's place of seclusion. On the other hand, Lin Hanqing was ambushed on his way to the rescue. Among them were many semi-god realm, and even half-saint mighty figures. For Jiang Tian, this was simply an impossible task, but Jiang Tian actually did it. Soon Lin Hanqing also rushed over. When you meet someone, you will naturally feel happy. "Husband, my family has been trampled by the demon clan. Not even a chicken or dog was spared." However, Madame Lin could not help but complain tearfully. "What?" Lin Hanqing couldn't believe it. Then he said coldly, "Don't worry. I will avenge you and make Purple Marquis and the myriad demons palace pay the price in blood." Blood for blood. Everyone in the Lin family was filled with grief and indignation. They raised their arms and shouted, their killing intent like a dragon. This time, the Lin family suffered heavy losses. There were countless casualties in Jinyuan host territory. At this moment, Lin Hanqing's communication device rang. He picked it up and looked at it. His expression became serious, and he said in a deep voice, "Mr. Jiang, The array in the palace has sent a message. An imperial edict has arrived, asking the Lin family to gather the soldiers and join forces with Count Nan He to follow Crown Prince Dongfang Ding and Second Prince Dongfang Li to besiege Purple Marquis. That's how it should be. Jiang Tian's expression was calm and unruffled. He was not surprised at all. Zhang Linfeng was captured alive. Purple Marquis's crime of assassinating Lin Hanqing was confirmed. This alone was enough to sentence Zishan Ho to death. Emperor Niuben's deity was controlled by Jiang Tian. He also clearly knew about the cooperation between the Myriad Demon's Palace and Purple Marquis. Together with this, Purple Marquis's crime was unforgivable, and his entire family should be executed. Lin Hanqing had already reported these two pieces of information to Eastern Lu immediately. Eastern Lu had long wanted to kill Purple Marquis, so how could he not take action? Most importantly, with the clue of Emperor Niuben's deity, he had already found out that the Myriad Demon's Palace Master Han Guang was the late Emperor Dongfang Jie. Dongfang Jie had implemented the county system in the past, which weakened the power of the feudal lords. This would instantly divide Purple Marquis's camp and make the feudal lords hate him to the core. If they did not take action now, when would they? However, Lin Yang, the eldest princess, and the little princess are still in the eldest princess's palace, so we have to hold back. Lin Hanqing sighed, feeling nervous. With the eldest princess's strength and the protective array of the palace, even if Purple Marquis were to take action, she should be able to resist for a while. Jiang Tian looked calm and said leisurely, "Besides, until now the eldest princess and the others have not sent a message. This also means that at least they are safe for now. Purple Marquis did not take action against them. Why is that?" Lin Hanqing was puzzled and said, "If I were Purple Marquis, if I knew that my assassination and collaboration with the demon race had been exposed, I would definitely attack the eldest princess's palace and take her down, so that the Eastern royal family would hold back and I would also have an advantageous position. The point is he doesn't know." Jiang Tian suddenly smiled mockingly. This. Lin Hanqing's puzzlement grew even stronger. It's very simple. The Myriad Demon's Palace has already abandoned him. Jiang Tian said leisurely. Now, the Myriad Demon's Palace's plan to use Purple Marquis to instigate internal strife in the Empire has already failed. Purple Marquis is no longer of value to the Myriad Demon's Palace. The Myriad Demon's Palace will not sacrifice anything for him. Besides, the Myriad Demon's Palace can't even take care of themselves. Right now, they are probably frantically reinforcing their territory, waiting for my attack. I see. Lin Hanqing seemed to understand. In addition, Eastern Lu has issued a secret edict to confer you the title of Imperial Preceptor, second only to one and above all. Congratulations, Mr. Jiang. From now on, I can only call you Imperial Preceptor Xiqing. Lin Hanqing bowed respectfully, his emotions complicated. Strictly speaking, from today onwards, Jiang Tian could no longer be considered a guest of the Lin family of the Marquis of Zhenyuan. The imperial family was supreme. How could there be a reason for a vassal or official to hire an imperial preceptor as a guest? The so-called secret edict was the opposite of an open one. It was a secret edict that only the person involved and the emperor knew. This was also very easy to understand, because the strength that Jiang Tian had displayed was too strong. Even many divine sects and sacred grounds revered him, and sect leaders wanted to befriend him. Eastern Lu was also uncertain about Jiang Tian's attitude. Would he care about this so-called position of imperial preceptor? There's no need to be polite between you and me. Jiang Tian chuckled. Eastern Lu is naturally suspicious, and has already begun to fear the Lin family of the Marquis of Zhenyuan. Has he weakened? As this thought flashed through Jiang Tian's mind. Boom! Waves of thunderclaps resounded from the horizon as numerous flying boats, cloud towers, and chariots galloped over. Lightning coiled around them while wind, lightning, earth and fire sprayed out. Numerous chariots and flying boats were innumerable, and they formed a continuous expanse that was like a cloud that hung down from the sky. It was a magnificent sight. There were at least 100,000 cultivator soldiers and generals in sharp armor, and they were arranged in a battle formation. Their swords and spears were as bright as snow, and their murderous aura shook the sky. Every one of them had a golden core cultivation, and it made one's heart palpitate. At the forefront of the battle formation, a large flag fluttered in the wind, and 2 large words were written on it. Nan He. A man in golden armor and a red robe was majestic. His skin was bronze, and his facial features were chiseled. His long eyebrows slanted to his temples, making him look extremely valiant. A vast aura of the peak soul formation stage, close to that of a half-step void return, blotted out the sky and caused the earth to tremble. Duke Nan He Fong Jinlong, the city lord of Golden Sand City, greets Imperial Preceptor Siqing. I wish Imperial Preceptor Siqing a long and boundless life. However, when facing Jiang Tian, he did not have the slightest arrogance. He cupped his fists and bowed deeply, showing the highest respect. Fong Jinlong is indeed the Empire's #1 expert. Seeing Fong Jinlong, a strange look flashed across Jiang Tian's face, and he was deeply moved. In his previous life, when he was just thrown to the divine origin world by his master, he was only a Qi refinement and foundation establishment cultivator. When he met a giant of the empire like Fong Jinlong, he would probably have to bow down and kowtow 3 times and 9 times. But now, the wheel of fate was turning again, and everything was different. And everyone realized that a great counterattack was about to begin. Chapter 1945. 3 days later, in Jianghan City, 10 of the 23 lords in the south have arrived, a total of 300,000 soldiers. There are still a few more on the way. 3 days later, at least 500,000 soldiers will gather. Let's see how they'll take back the 13 cities by then. Under the setting sun, the sky was dyed red like blood. On top of the majestic city wall, the purple marquis stood with his hands behind his back. His body was like a spear, sharp and sharp. His eyes scanned the 13 cities outside the city, and a ferocious look appeared on his face. Huh? Take back the 13 cities? We lost them to Lin Hanqing in the first place. Lin Hanqing is dead. Who dares to take the 13 cities? Marquis Shanshui snorted in disdain. Next to him, the 10 lords who had arrived with their troops stood quietly with solemn and respectful faces, waiting for the order of the top Marquis of the southern border. Marquis Purple Robe and the grand cultivators of the monster race had launched a thunderous attack and defeated the arrogant Marquis Zhenyuan's family. Even the lords in the south who had doubts about him before were now as quiet as cicadas in winter. Marquis, I have a feeling that the situation is not good. Among the crowd, only Lord Wang of the Medicine Fragrant Tower said. Rumor has it that 3 days ago, there was a dragon roar on 100-Flower Peak, and a 100-mile beam of light shot to the sky. There was an earth-shattering explosion on Zhuowang Peak, as if soul formation grand cultivators were fighting. There were laws in the Black Stone Forest, countless bodies of stone-cracking birds, and the ancestral patriarch of the Lin family. I'm thinking, is there a problem with the Pantheon of Monsters operation? The battles on 100-Flower Peak, Zhuowang Peak, Blackstone Forest, and the ancestral patriarch of the Lin family had caused a huge commotion, but the real inside story was strictly guarded by the royal family. The only ones who knew the inside story were the giants of the divine sects and sacred grounds who were involved in the observation. However, the Medicine Fragrant Tower was also one of the top 20 sects in the divine origin continent. Its subsidiary companies were spread all over the major cities and were well informed. Lord Wang had vaguely heard some news. Didn't they say that a meteor fell on 100-Flower Peak and caused an anomaly? Marquis Shanshui was talking about the news spread by the royal family to confuse people and make Marquis Purple Robe. Taking advantage of these few days, the Imperial Army's troops and horses were rapidly mobilized. They secretly traveled hundreds of thousands of li and gathered at the southern border. They approached the Red Cliff Basin and besieged the Purple Marquis territory. Sir God Nio Ben sent a message saying that they did succeed. They captured Lin Dai and killed Jiang Siqing. Hearing Landlord Wang's question, displeasure flashed across Purple Marquis's face. Just as they were about to raise the flag of rebellion and defeat the Eastern Imperial family, their morale could be used. Landlord Wang's words were boosting the prestige of others while diminishing his own spirit. Naturally, he was not pleased to hear it. However, Landlord Wang's support was also indispensable and extremely important to Purple Marquis. Therefore, he suppressed his displeasure and smiled confidently. Moreover, Zhang Linfeng also used a communication magical tool to talk to me. Lin Hanqing and his son are indeed dead. They were killed by Sir God Qiling with one palm. That's really worth celebrating. When Landlord Wang heard that, he was hesitant. He muttered to himself for a while and he suddenly cupped his hands and asked, "Can we talk to Sir God Qiling? This way, we can be more assured?" Landlord Wang, Sir God Qiling is a guardian of the Myriad Monsters Palace. His strength is close to that of a Void Return Realm half-sage. He is like a divine dragon in the sky. How can I talk to him whenever I want to? Purple Marquis was getting impatient. These words sounded nice, but Landlord Wang understood the meaning behind them. It did not mean that Purple Marquis was not qualified to talk to Qiling anytime, but that Landlord Wang was not qualified. At that moment, Landlord Wang was annoyed. The Fragrant Medicine Tower was based on the trading of elixirs and Dharma treasures. It was known for its wealth. However, in terms of cultivation, it was mediocre. Landlord Wang was indeed not as powerful as Qiling. However, Landlord Wang was also a sect master. As the saying goes, one would rather be the head of a chicken than the tail of a phoenix. Landlord Wang thought highly of himself, and he suddenly felt that Purple Marquis was being too disrespectful to him. Moreover, Purple Marquis and the Myriad Monsters Palace were cooperating too deeply. It could even be said that Purple Marquis was just a puppet of the Myriad Monsters Palace. If Purple Marquis could overthrow the Eastern Imperial family and ascend the throne, the sect that would gain the most benefits would be the Myriad Monsters Palace. The Fragrant Medicine Tower would fall behind. Purple Marquis also noticed Landlord Wang's subtle mood and smiled apologetically. "Landlord Wang, please don't blame me. I was too impatient. Zhang Linfeng is a spy that I have nurtured for many years. Moreover, I have saved his life. He will definitely not betray me. Landlord Wang can rest assured. When the armies of the dukes gather, we will directly attack the imperial capital." At that moment, Landlord Wang's communication device rang. Landlord Wang cupped his hands and Purple Marquis signaled for him to deal with it. Landlord Wang went outside to take a look and immediately broke out in cold sweat. This was the news he received as a guest at the Eastern Canyon Duke's mansion. 3 days ago, at the 100 Flowers Peak, Jiang Xiqing killed Niu Ben and 3 other demon clan divine lords, and killed the abyssal demon dragon. This disciple specialized in refining elixirs for the Eastern Canyon Duke and his family. This news was also heard from him when he was treating the Eastern Canyon Duke's injuries. Naturally, it was not fake. Landlord Wang put away the communication Dharma artifact and felt his legs go soft. He couldn't even stand properly. This was because he had indeed heard the cry of a true dragon. It was just that he had become famous relatively late, and his strength was not comparable to those living fossils. He was not like them, who had immediately determined that it was the abyssal demon dragon. However, he was able to determine that it was the dragon cry. At that moment he was terrified. It turned out that Sir God Niu Ben really fought with Jiang Xiqing and was killed. However, why was Sir God Niu Ben still able to send a message to Purple Marquis? There was only one reason, which was that his god had not been destroyed and he had been completely subdued by Jiang Xiqing. Moreover, Zhang Linfeng must have betrayed Purple Marquis, because Zhang Linfeng and the Myriad Monsters Palace were communicating with each other. He naturally knew that Sir God Niu Ben had failed. However, why did he not send a message to Purple Marquis so that he could be on guard? It could only be that he was controlled by someone. Moreover, Sir God Qiling had failed and was even killed. This was also the reason why Sir God Qiling did not send a message personally. It seems that I have underestimated Jiang Xiqing's power. She could even kill the ancient demon dragon. I am afraid her power is close to that of a Void Return Saint. However, rumor has it that her cultivation is only at the nascent soul realm. This is too heaven-defying. There is one more thing. If she is so powerful, why does she need to join the mansion of Zhenyuan Marquis as a foreign dignitary? Wouldn't it be better for her to be an elder in the Holy Land God sect? Why does she need to fight for her life in the mortal world? Landlord Wang was shocked and puzzled at the same time. However, there was one thing. He was extremely sure. No matter what, Purple Marquis is doomed this time. After Landlord Wang looked at the communication device, he stood there silently and pondered. Purple Marquis immediately asked, Landlord Wang, what's the matter? Chapter 1946. Landlord Wang revealed an awkward but polite smile as he shook his head and said, Alas, just now, a few of the incompetent managers of my subordinate companies sent me a message saying that time is of the essence. Although everyone has tried their best, we still haven't gathered enough healing pills for the army. We're still missing 50,000. Truly infuriating. To be able to gather so many pills in just 3 days is already commendable. If there comes a day when this Marquis is able to ascend to the throne, I will definitely not forget your assistance today. The entire empire will support Fragrant Medicine Pavilion. Marquis Purple Robe was all smiles. Before the army moves, the provisions must move first. A lack of healing pills will slow down Lord Marquis's movements. This subordinate would like to return to Fragrant Medicine Pavilion and supervise them in preparing the pills and healing materials. What does Lord Marquis think? Landlord Wang smiled. Marquis Purple Robe waved his hand and smiled. Then I'll have to trouble Landlord Wang. Landlord Wang shouldn't be overly critical. We'll use battle to nurture battle. When the armies of the 23 marquises have gathered, we'll set out and conquer Jinyuan Marquis's territory. He has the spirit vein of Tiger Toad Ridge and many spirit herbs. There's no need for us to worry. This subordinate understands. Landlord Wang deeply bowed, then clasped his hands at the Marquis of Shanshui and the other marquises before silently withdrawing. Marquis Purple Robe was already commanding the troops. It was just that a moment later, a family general flew over and reported with a bow. Reporting to Lord Marquis, Manor Lord Wang wants to take away all of the Fragrant Medicine Hall's transport flying ships. This subordinate feels that it is inappropriate and requests for Lord Marquis to make a decision. What's so strange about this? Marquis Purple Robe was currently discussing the route of the army with several other marquises, and did not take this matter to heart. He still needs to purchase large quantities of healing pills to transport over, so he naturally has to take away the airships. Otherwise, their transport forces would be far from enough. The general appeared suspicious. But what's strange is that he also wants to take away many of the pills. Some of them have already entered the treasury. What? This time, everyone felt very strange. Even the somewhat brainless Marquis of Shanshui was startled. Why did he take them away? Landlord Wang. He said that these pills were of too low grade and needed to be melted down. This subordinate wanted to stop him at the time, but he said that the matter was urgent and that he was furious. Marquis Purple Robe's expression changed, and he felt a chill down his spine. Hurry and invite Landlord Wang's return. After saying that, he added, regardless of life or death. At this time, a nascent soul cultivator flew over and said anxiously, reporting to the Marquis, Landlord Wang injured dozens of cultivators guarding the warehouse and the city. He took many medicinal pills and left Jianghan City on a flying boat. As for where he went, he has already used an artifact to mask his aura. We can't track him. What? Marquis Purple Marquis level Marquis the purple variety? If Purple Marquis wanted to overthrow the Eastern Imperial family and replace them, other than the support of the Myriad Demons Palace, the most important factor was the support of the Fragrant Medicine House. Marquis is Marquis to the Marquis? Marquis. This was an immeasurable blow to the morale of the vassals. At this moment, his vast consciousness had already sensed the violent changes in the expressions of the vassals, their rapid heartbeats, and their indistinct consciousness transmissions. Landlord Wang's businesses can be found all over the empire, and even the continent. You are well informed. Could it be that he obtained some information that I didn't know about? Is it true that something went wrong with the Pantheon of Demons operation as he said just now? Purple Marquis's heart thumped as he forced himself to calm down. But after thinking about it, he still rejected this possibility. Because the logic was very simple. The battles at the 100 Flowers Peak, the Zhuowang Peak, the Blackstone Forest, and the place where Lin Takong was in seclusion were taking place. He had paid close attention to it, and even investigated it. Judging from the destructive power of those 4 battles, all of them were at the level of Return to Void stage saints. Moreover, it happened almost at the same time. Lin Hanqing, and even the entire empire, did not have so many saints. Therefore Lin Hanqing must have died on Zhuowang Peak. The battle at the 100 Flowers Peak seems to have involved the 9 Mysteries sect. However, Sir God Nyoben had said that Jiang Xiqing had been killed. Of course it's not fake. The Purple Marquis quickly regained his confidence. He looked at the Southern Marquis and smiled. There's more. If the Pantheon of Demons operation failed, then the eldest princess will be the first to know the news. Why would she stay here? She will definitely run away as soon as possible. Don't worry everyone. Jiang Xiqing is dead, the Lin Mansion is destroyed, and the Zhenyuan Marquis' territory is mine. The Eastern Empire also belongs to me and all of you. Marquis, you always take every possibility into account. You plan before you act. When you act, you are as immovable as a mountain, but when you act, you are as swift as a flame. Jiang Xiqing will definitely die. Lin Hanqing will also die. Ah! The general trend is set. The Southern Marquis laughed complacently. It's a pity that I can't personally kill Jiang Xiqing, a lowly rogue cultivator from outside the river, to avenge my son. When I meet up with Sir God Nyoben later, I will definitely take Jiang Xiqing's body and whip it to vent my anger. The Marquis of Shanshui was still indignant. Nyoben said that I'm dead, so you think I'm dead? Suddenly, a cold voice sounded from the top of the city gate tower. Everyone's laughter stopped abruptly as they looked toward the source of the voice. They saw a middle-aged scholarly man in a green robe, with chiseled facial features and deep eyes that had experienced the vicissitudes of life. Jiang Xiqing, you're still alive. The Marquis of Shanshui looked as if he had seen a ghost. You really want me dead? Do you still want to whip my body? Jiang Tian looked at him with a smile. No, I don't dare. However, the Marquis of Shanshui felt as if he was being stared at by a devil. Boundless fear surged into his heart. He could not stand at all, and sat directly on the ground. How is this possible? The Marquis of Purple Robe was also extremely shocked, and could not believe it. Sir God Nyoben had already said that Jiang Tian was indeed killed by him. How could he come back from the dead? If Jiang Tian could escape unscathed from Sir God Nyoben, it would be too terrifying. Could it be because of the 9 Mysteries sect? The 9 Mysteries sect was fighting with Nyoben. Nyoben made a mistake in the chaos and killed someone else. It's possible that he mistook it for Jiang Xiqing. Thinking of this, the Marquis of Purple Robe gradually calmed down. He sneered and said confidently, Jiang Xiqing, you were lucky to escape. But this time, you walked right into the trap. You won't be so lucky. Do you know that the entire Jianghan city and the 13 surrounding cities have gathered an army? Killing you is just a piece of cake for them. In the Marquis of Purple Robe's opinion, Jiang Tian's strength was similar to his. Maybe he was slightly stronger, but they were still at the same level. There were also many dukes and generals joining forces to besiege him. Moreover, there were hundreds of thousands of soldiers outside. When they formed a battle formation, they could even kill a sage. Taking down a semi-god realm warrior was just like catching a turtle in a jar. Is that so? Let's try it later. Jiang Tian smiled casually. The semi-god realm warriors among the dukes were still inferior to the sir-gods of the Pantheon of Demons. Jiang Tian and the others could kill them in the blink of an eye. Most importantly, given the current situation, Jiang Tian might not even need to take action. If the dukes knew that the Marquis of Purple Robe was working for the late Emperor Dongfang Jie, who abolished the dukedom system, they might tear him into pieces. Chapter 1947. Purple Marquis, you're underestimating me too much. Do you think I'm that kind of person who's afraid of death? Will I run away when there's a little danger? Do you think the title of War Goddess of the Empire is given for nothing? At this moment, another mocking voice sounded. Princess Royal, Dongfang Moyu, who was wearing armor and a golden crown, also appeared on the city wall. She had delicate features and her skin was translucent. Her chest was high and her waist was slender. Her legs were long and slender. Her figure was fit and sexy to the extreme. But at the same time, she held a snow-white scimitar in her hand. A terrifying killing intent, and the vast aura of a divine lord surged out, causing one's heart to palpitate. How would I dare to underestimate the princess? Eldest princess, why aren't you in the temporary imperial residence? Why are you here in the middle of the night? Purple Marquis's heart skipped a beat when he saw the princess royal, but he quickly calmed down and bowed slightly. Purple Marquis, do you know what you've done wrong? Dongfang Moyu's face turned cold when she saw that Purple Marquis was pretending to be confused. I've always been loyal to my country. What wrong have I done wrong? Purple Marquis's face darkened, but he wasn't afraid. He was 100% sure that Divine Lord Qiling had assassinated Lin Hanqing. Since Jiang Tian had gone to 100 Flowers Peak, there was no one around Lin Hanqing that he could rely on. Lin Hanqing had only been a Divine Lord for a few years, and he couldn't withstand a single blow from Divine Lord Qiling. He was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Even if Lin Hanqing was lucky enough to escape, Divine Lord Qiling would be able to escape unscathed, and he wouldn't leave any evidence behind. It's the Divine Lord of the monster race who tried to assassinate Lin Hanqing. What does it have to do with me? Purple Marquis scoffed. Zhang Linfeng accused you of instructing the Divine Lord of the monster race to kill Zhenyuan Marquis Lin Hanqing. Do you still want to deny it? Jiang Tian sneered and waved his sleeves. The sleeves were dark and deep, as if there was a universe hidden in the sleeves. Zhang Linfeng and his son also became bigger and bigger, and they rolled out of the sleeves onto the city wall. Mr. Jiang is so powerful. How did he get so much evidence? This is Purple Marquis's weakness, his weakness. Everyone was shocked and they couldn't believe it. He couldn't understand how Sir God Qiling could fail when he had taken action personally, and he was so powerful. Divine Lord Qiling is dead. Could it be that the Zhenyuan Marquis residence has a peak divine transformation, or even a half-saint? Many of the marquises felt uneasy. Zhang Linfeng shivered and knelt on the ground. He pointed out. Purple Marquis colluded with the demon race's divine monarchs and attacked the residence of Zhenyuan Marquis. He kidnapped Lin Dyer at the 100 Flowers Peak and attacked the ancestor of the Lin family. His goal was to lure the tiger away from the mountain and lure Mr. Jiang away from Lin Hanqing. Then he wanted me to lure Lin Hanqing to the Forgetting Peak and let Divine Monarch Qiling, one of the 4 great guardians of the pantheon of demons, kill him. Nonsense. You're slandering me. When Purple Marquis heard this, his eyes widened and his body trembled violently, as if he had been greatly wronged and humiliated. He pointed at Zhang Linfeng and shouted, "Who the hell is threatening you, or ordering you to slander this king? It must be Lin Hanqing, isn't it? You're his servant." "I'm not slandering you. I'm your spy in the Lin mansion. Every time you gave me an order, I left a mark on it." Zhang Linfeng and his son were trembling in fear, but they still shouted and showed the evidence. "You slandered me and tried to drive a wedge between you and me. You deserve to die." Purple Marquis shouted and his voice was like thunder. Everyone's blood boiled, and they almost spat out blood. He looked gloomy and his eyes were fierce. He stretched out his hand and it became bigger. It was like a millstone and then a mountain, pressing down on Zhang Linfeng and his son. Eldest Princess, Grand Master. Zhang Linfeng and his son hurriedly dodged and looked at Jiang Tian and Dongfang Moyu for help, hoping to be protected. Spies don't have a good ending. But Jiang Tian didn't make a move at all. He just looked on coldly. Zhang Linfeng had plotted against the Lin family several times. More importantly, he had put his precious daughter in danger several times. How could Jiang Tian let him live? Even if Purple Marquis didn't kill him, Jiang Tian would kill him sooner or later. There was a loud boom. Under the palm, Zhang Linfeng and his son were smashed into powder, turning into a bloody mist that filled the air. Crystal-clear broken bones flew everywhere. Before the two died, their faces were still full of shock and unwillingness. They couldn't believe and accept that Jiang Tian didn't help and they died so miserably. "You're trying to drive a wedge between me and the royal family. You deserve death." Purple Marquis shook his sleeves and cursed as if his anger hadn't subsided. Finally, he cupped his hands and smiled. I think that with eldest princess's wisdom, you definitely won't believe the nonsense of a mere guest of the Lin family, the slanderous words of a nobody. These words not only scolded Zhang Linfeng, but also humiliated Jiang Tian. Purple Marquis, the evidence is conclusive. Don't try to quibble. Plead guilty and surrender. Dongfeng Moyu was slender and enchanting, but she was full of beauty and strength. She raised her chin slightly and said in a commanding tone, "If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext." Hearing this, Marquis Purple Robe's expression changed drastically. Clenching his fists, he approached Dongfeng Moyu and shouted, "My Purple Robe Marquis lineage has been loyal to the country for generations. We have shed our blood for the empire, and we have done our best until we die. But because of Lin Hanqing's jealousy, we have suffered such injustice. This is outrageous. This Marquis refuses to accept it. Absolutely refuses to accept it. How dare you? Purple Marquis, you dare to be disrespectful to me. Are you rebelling?" Dongfeng Moyu raised her eyebrows and shouted angrily, "I don't dare. But if the emperor forces me to rebel, then I have no choice but to rebel. Eldest princess, if you don't want to slander me and capture me, in order to protect myself, I can only shed all pretense of cordiality and fight you to the death." Purple Marquis said with a pained expression. "Shed all pretense of cordiality? Fight to the death? You really want to rebel?" Dongfeng Moyu had a furious look on his face. "What? Does eldest princess think that I don't have the ability to rebel?" Purple Marquis said proudly. "The 23 vassals in the south all worship me. In the 13 outer cities around me, there are millions of soldiers. Eldest princess, I've offended you. This Marquis wants to capture you and bring you to His Majesty to ask, what are your intentions? Do you want to suppress the loyal officials and usurp the throne?" At this moment, he was still playing the blame game. "Brothers, let's fight." Purple Marquis waved his hand proudly. "Fight." On the city wall, the faces of the vassals flashed with boundless determination as they roared together. "Fight." The 13 outer cities rumbled and trembled at the same time. Surging battle intent soared into the sky, shaking the sky and breaking through the flowing clouds. The momentum was astonishing. Chapter 1948. 10,000 soldiers from the territory of the Marquis of Shanshui will fight for the righteous path. 30,000 soldiers from the territory of the Marquis of Qingshan will fight for the people. 20,000 soldiers from the territory of the Marquis of Red Flower will fight to get rid of the tyrannical ruler. Roars came out of the mouths of tens of thousands of people at the same time, forming a giant wave of sound that resounded in the sky like thunder. Following the furious roars, magnificent formations rose into the air from the 13 outer cities. Every battle array had 10,000 golden core cultivators as the base and a soul formation grand cultivator as the core. The power of 10,000 people combined into one and formed a terrifying energy. After being strengthened by large Taoist artifacts and sacred weapons, the terrifying Dharma laws and Grand Daros were condensed, which could easily kill a soul formation cultivator and wound a real saint. In the end, 100,000 soldiers from Jianghan City will fight for the Marquis of Purple Robe. Following the loudest roar, a vast array rose into the air from Jianghan City. That formation was dozens of miles wide, and it was made up of countless soldiers in sharp armor. They were guarding the sacred weapons and the soul formation grand cultivators. Each of the soldiers in the array was extremely powerful. Their eyes were as cold as iron, and they were so firm that there wasn't a trace of emotion. It seemed that no one could shake their will to fight. On the other hand, the aura of 100,000 golden core realm cultivators flowed like a stream into a river, and then a river into an ocean. They converged together to form a terrifying imposing aura that filled the sky and caused the ground to tremble, and the buildings to tremble. That's terrifying. When she saw this scene, even the beautiful face of eldest Princess Mou, who'd been on the battlefield for a long time, went pale, and her delicate body tensed up as her heart palpitated with fear. The hidden sects were superior, and the divine sects had a long history and were powerful. In terms of individual strength, A half-saint elder of the divine sex was invincible in an empire and could kill anyone, including the king of a country. But why did such things rarely happen? The mortal dynasties and the hidden sects usually stayed out of each other's business. Could they achieve a certain level of balance? The reason was the power of the battle formation. A battle formation could be turned into a hole, and sand could be gathered to form a tower. It was like how an ant was insignificant, but 10,000 or 100 million ants, if commanded well and cooperated well, could bite an elephant to death. This was the ultimate deterrent to the secluded sects, so they would not easily invade the secular world and offend a dynasty. Now 11 warlords, 11 armies, 11 battle formations, and more than 200,000 gold core soldiers were gathered in Jianghan City. The momentum was astonishing. It possessed the power to crush mountains and rivers, tear apart the heavens, and destroy everything in its path. It could be said that this was the most powerful force in the empire, surpassing the imperial family. No one could fight him head-on. Woo 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 woo. A bleak horn sounded. Bugles rang out continuously, rising from all directions, from far to near. Those bugles meant that battle formations were rapidly approaching the main city of Jianghan City. Even though the horn was hundreds of miles away, it still seemed to be ringing in everyone's ears. It seemed to have touched upon the laws of music. It could boost the soldiers' morale, make their blood boil, and surge their will to fight. It could also intimidate the enemy's soul and disintegrate their will to fight. Although the effect was far inferior to the 12 divine sounds of Longhuan, they were essentially on the same path. The battle formations in Jianghan City were also the first to approach at the fastest speed. Release. Fight. The spirit armors on the 100,000 cultivators shone at the same time. Endless dermic powers flowed from everyone's body through the spirit armors and formations, converging into Purple Marquis's body. Purple Marquis leaped into the air, his aura rising steadily. He opened up his domain, and his Dharma idol transformed into a 1,000-meter-tall giant. This giant had the same features as him. It stood on the ground, holding an axe in one hand and a shield in the other. As soon as it appeared, a terrifying wave of energy filled the void. Its power was several times stronger than that of a half-step void return cultivator, causing mountains and rivers to explode. It was comparable to a true void return cultivator. He was confident that killing Jiang Tian and eldest princess Mou would be as easy as taking something out of his pocket. Eldest princess, do you still dare to fight with me? Purple Marquis was high and mighty, full of arrogance. He looked down at Jiang Tian and Mou as if he was looking at ants. Fight. The cultivators in the battle formations roared and activated their golden cores, making a series of rumbling sounds. Billowing essence qi gushed out from their dantian, and was transformed, strengthened and condensed by the formations. Finally, it gathered on their bodies, Dao artifacts and sacred weapons in their hands. For a moment, images appeared in the sky. Rebel. Kill. Under the support of the vast battle formations, the 10 southern marquises were either shining with golden light, burning the sky with crimson flames, rolling black tides, or silver wings covering the sky, evolving different Dharma idols and divine domains. They stood more than 10 miles apart, surrounding eldest princess Mou and Jiang Tian. Each of their strength rose and became more powerful than before, more than 10 times stronger than before. They were comparable to Fang Jinlong and eldest princess Mou, or even stronger. Capture me? Punish this Purple Marquis. Purple Marquis was smug and sneered. May I ask, what do you have? Purple-robed Marquis shouted with a fearless look on his face. This? At this moment, under Purple Marquis's questioning, eldest princess Mou's face was full of anger, but she was actually speechless. In fact, if the armies of the 4 dukes were gathered, they only needed 2 dukes to fight against them. But the problem was that the southern marquises were just scattered sand, and it was impossible for them to unite. It was even more impossible for them to unite to protect the Eastern royal family. If Purple Marquis could gather the 23 armies of the southern marquises, he would be invincible and unstoppable. Strength was always relative, not absolute. At this moment, she couldn't help but panic and send a message to Jiang Tian with her divine sense. Mr. Jiang, what should we do now? I didn't expect Purple Marquis to act so quickly. In just 3 days, he secretly gathered hundreds of thousands of troops, and even avoided the surveillance of my spies. You are too reckless this time. This operation was quite rushed. Because she expected Purple Marquis to take extreme actions, she didn't dare to leave the palace these days, because the palace was protected by the divine formation, and had the home advantage. Once she left the palace, it would be more dangerous. However, all of a sudden, Jiang Tian arrived. Without saying a word, he used the world in the sleeve method to put Lin Yang and little princess Dongfanging into the space created by the creation, and then brought eldest princess Mou over to settle the score with the purple-robed marquis. Because of the sudden incident, and because Jiang Tian had taught him the 12 magical sounds of Longhuan, Dongfang Moyu trusted Jiang Tian quite a bit. Therefore, he didn't ask much and followed. Now, eldest princess Mou was filled with regret. Being surrounded by 11 battle formations was simply sending her head to die. Jiang Tian smiled faintly, his eyes lowered, and did not say a word, as if he had nothing to say. Chapter 1949. You want to catch me? Do you have the ability? Rely on you or Jiang Xiqing. Marquis Purple Robe's hair fluttered in the wind. He was proud of himself and laughed mockingly. His eyes were full of mockery, like a tiger looking at a struggling rabbit in its claws. Yes, Jiang Xiqing. Even if you can escape from the siege of Sir God Niu Ben, so what? Marquis Shanshui supported a long river Dharma with the infusion of the Dharma power of the battle formation. His strength reached the peak of the divine transformation realm in an instant, and could suppress elder princess Mou. Perhaps because of the numerous humiliations and setbacks he'd suffered at Jiang Tian's hands. Amongst all the dukes, it was he that had the deepest hatred towards Jiang Tian, and he wished for nothing more than to eat Jiang Tian's flesh and skin, then grind his bones and scatter his ashes. At this moment, seeing Jiang Tian in trouble, he was the happiest. The annoyance in his heart had long been swept away. Instead, it was replaced by exultation and gloating to the extreme. He activated the long river Dharma across the sky. The Dharma power whistled and the domain spread out. He showed off his power and shouted crazily. Do you think you're so great just because you have some achievements? You're just a lowly creature from a remote place like the Black Sun Star Zone. You're a frog at the bottom of a well. You're short-sighted and ignorant. You don't know the power of the battle formation of Saint Origin Continent. With one slap, I can smash you, little brat, into pieces. He looked like a villain who was intoxicated with success. He looked down on everything and the corners of his mouth could tie up a cow. Seeing that Jiang Tian was silent, another marquis shook his head and laughed. Since you already know our plan, you should avoid it and not get involved in this mess. Even if you want to get involved, you should report it to the imperial court, and let the royal family mobilize the army. That's the safest way. Why did you come here yourself? Why did you come here to deliver your head? So that we can close the door and beat the dog, catch the turtle in the jar? Hearing this, Lin Yang in the heaven and earth sleeve felt that it was very reasonable. He sighed and said, Mr. Jiang is too anxious. Since my father has already escaped, and he has obtained evidence, he should report this to Eastern Lu in the imperial city, and call for Count Nanha and the other vassals who are close to the imperial family to slowly fight them. That's right. Why is Senior Jiang in such a hurry? This is... Even Dongfang, who had always worshipped Jiang Tian, had a trace of disappointment and worry in her eyes. Sensing the terrifying pressure brought about by the military formation and the vassals, eldest Princess Mou was so anxious that she stomped her feet and said, Mr. Jiang, this is a peerless killing trap. Jiang Tian's face was indifferent. He smiled calmly and said, You can hide from the immortal consciousness of normal soul formation cultivators with the space Dharma treasures and thousands of soldiers. But how can you evade my gaze? What? You know? Purple Marquis expression changed slightly. Could it be that you think you can compete with the battle formation of hundreds of thousands of troops of the southern vassals, just because you managed to escape from Sir God Niu Ben? The other Marquis, however, slapped his thigh crazily and laughed. Why wouldn't he think so? Because I've already said that he is a lowly person from outside the river. He doesn't know the horror of a battle formation at all. Haha, a brain is a good thing. Unfortunately, you don't have one. Marquis Shanshui laughed even more crazily. Although I'm not knowledgeable, I know the power of a battle formation. It's not that shallow. Jiang Tian spoke with a smile, and he was calm and composed. It was as if he wasn't facing a powerful army, wasn't in a life-and-death battlefield, and was just chatting with a few good friends. What do you mean? Purple Marquis eyes were confused. He stared at Jiang Tian with a burning gaze, as if he wanted to see through his mind. I think he's just pretending. The Marquis of Shanshui did not wait for Jiang Tian to reply, and his face was filled with impatience as he gnashed his teeth and roared. Marquis, originally, Lin Hanqing and his son were extremely useless. If not for him being a shit-stirrer and interrupting our plans, they would have been played to death by us long ago. We have suffered losses and setbacks again and again because of this person. I'll kill him. His face was full of resentment. He spread out his domain, activated his Dharma idol, and pressed down on Jiang Tian. Marquis Shanshui, you bastard, who are you calling trash? I'm just a piece of unpolished jade that hasn't been carved well? After Mr. Zhang's skillful training, didn't I successfully become a talent and beat your son until he was looking for his teeth on the ground? If I'm trash, then what is your son? Bastard. In the heaven and earth sleeve, Lin Yang cursed crazily, gnashing his teeth in anger. He was very concerned about the title of trash. He said that if he took down Marquis Shanshui one day, he would tear his mouth apart. Lin Yang, we've already fallen into a group of enemies. Or do you want to think about how to escape? The little princess reminded timidly. Sai, what can I do? They're really fighting. There's no chance. At this moment, Lin Yang was already frightened by the scene outside and sighed. Kill. Don't listen to his nonsense, kill them all. In the outside world, the other dukes also began to move. Just as Grand Princess Mou's face flashed with endless determination, preparing to fight to the death. Jiang Tian smiled indifferently and said, Everyone listen to me first. If you still want to kill me after I finish speaking, then I, Jiang Xiqing, will definitely not resist. I won't even move. I'll wash my neck clean and wait for you to chop it off. Stop. Let's see what he has to say. That's right. In any case, he's already a fish on the chopping board. He's at our mercy. He won't be able to cause any waves. The moment these words were spoken, the Duke's curiosity was piqued. Since Jiang Tian and Grand Princess Mou had no chance of escaping, there was no harm in listening to it for the time being. At this moment, even Mou was very curious. What kind of words can have such magical power? A single word can repel a million masters. Dong Fongying was also confused. It can't be that Mr. Jiang guessed correctly, right? Lin Yang suddenly remembered Jiang Tian's previous guess, and couldn't help but be dumbfounded as he mumbled to himself. On the day he and Jiang Tian returned to Maple City from the ancient medicine hall in the ice-sealed city to buy the falling sun stone, several soul formation grand cultivators suddenly attacked the Duke of Zhenyuan's residence and framed the Duke of Beijiang. Among those soul formation grand cultivators, one of them was a member of the royal family, but he had been demonized. In order to prevent his conspiracy from being exposed, he directly committed suicide. Jiang Tian speculated based on the details that the real supporter behind Purple Marquis might be the late emperor, Dongfang Jie. Also, Dongfang Jie should be inextricably linked to the pantheon of demons. Although this guess seemed unbelievable, Jiang Tian was very certain at that time. So far, some of Jiang Tian's speculations had been confirmed. For example, Qi Ling, the grand cultivator of the demon clan who helped Purple Marquis assassinate Lin Hanqing this time, was one of the 4 guardians of the pantheon of demons. No, it should be said that the pantheon of demons and Sir God Qi Ling wanted Lin Hanqing dead, while Purple Marquis only provided the relevant information, and ordered Zhang Linfeng to cooperate with Qi Ling to lure Lin Hanqing to a suitable location. Just as Lin Yang's thoughts were in a mess, Jiang Tian also spoke in a neither fast nor slow manner. I have found out the origin of the demon king Han Guang of the pantheon of demons. What? You found out. The Duke's face turned serious and the mocking expression disappeared. Instead, he became serious and looked at Jiang Tian attentively, waiting for him to continue. Because the Demon King Han Guang appeared out of nowhere 300 years ago. He was very powerful and defeated the grand cultivators of the demon clan. He unified billions of demon clans and established the pantheon of demons. He was faintly on par with the 10 sacred grounds and the divine sects. However, his origin was mysterious, as if he had jumped out of a stone egg. No one could say for sure what his origin was. 500 years ago, he was the late Emperor Dongfang, who was chased all the way to the demon-infested ridge and fell into the critical canyon because of the abolition of the feudal system and the implementation of the county system. Jiang Tian's voice wasn't loud. However, it was like a clap of thunder that resounded through the entire place and shocked everyone. In an instant, the original noise seemed to have been completely swallowed by a black hole. The entire place was silent. Only a still scene was left. How is this possible? Many marquises were frozen in place, their faces full of shock. They didn't move at all, like clay sculptures. Chapter 1950. The boundless images supported by the vassals were sometimes solid and real, sometimes illusory and indistinct. The rapid changes proved just how unstable their emotions were at this moment, and it stirred up great waves that shocked the heavens. This was hard for them to accept. They only knew about the cooperation between the Purple Marquis and the Myriad Demon Palace 3 days ago when the Purple Marquis decided to kill Lin Hanqing after the banquet. In the Purple Marquis's plan, the Myriad Demon Palace would support the southern vassals to overthrow the Eastern dynasty and establish a new court. After the success, the Myriad Demon Palace would become the protector of the new court, but they would not interfere with the normal operations of the new court. In their impression, the Myriad Demon Palace was high and mighty. It was only because of their relationship with the Purple Marquis that they helped, making the vassals feel like they got a great bargain. But now, after hearing this news, everyone's heart fell into the abyss. They felt a chill all over their body. The Marquis of Shanshui felt like, when he was a child, he had no strength to even truss a chicken. On a hot afternoon, he was bored to death as he strolled in the back garden. He found a green object and thought it was an emerald necklace dropped by a concubine. He excitedly wanted to pick it up and play with it. When he got closer, he found that it was a green, slippery, and cold poisonous snake with a triangular head. The poisonous snake stuck out its tongue, and its eyes were cold. The slippery and disgusting feeling seemed to reach his heart. We are playing with fire. If Jiang Xiqing did not lie to us, then there must be a conspiracy. We have been played by Dongfang Jia or the Purple Marquis. Not only did the Marquis of Shanshui think this, the other vassals were also alarmed. Back then, Dongfang Jia, who was overthrown and chased to death by them, became their backing to overthrow Dongfang Lu, who did not support his reform. How could Dongfang Jia be so kind as to help them? Moreover, Dongfang Jia's hatred for the feudal system was deep in his bones. Therefore, when he just ascended to the throne and took control of the imperial power, he did not have enough time to prepare, and immediately took action against the corrupt feudal vassals. When the war broke out, his family and loyal subordinates all died in the hands of the vassals. He was even chased off the throne and chased like a stray dog to the evil-infested ridge. He saw with his own eyes that in order to avoid being humiliated by the vassals, his concubines and princesses committed suicide. In his endless despair and hatred, he fell into the Grand Canyon. After going through this life and death calamity and suffering humiliation, Dongfang Jia's hatred towards the Marquis should be even greater. In this world, was there anything more serious than killing one's son or humiliating one's wife? Moreover, he was not a weakling. He was a man of great talent and bold vision. As the ruler of a country, his status was respected. This difference was even more obvious on him. This kind of emotion would become even more intense. If one thought about it carefully, they would understand it very clearly. Dongfang Jia loathed Eastern Lu, who had not supported him in dethroning the vassals and had still reconciled with them after he was exiled and killed. He loathed these vassals even more. Therefore, he used Purple Marquis as a troublemaker to stir up the conflict between the Marquis and the royal family, starting a war. He watched coldly from the sidelines and hid behind the scenes with a mocking smile. He enjoyed the dogfight between the enemies. When the royal family and the vassals were both injured, he would appear and easily reap the harvest. Purple Marquis's expression greatly changed. After being stunned for a few seconds, he angrily pointed at Jiang Tian and said, "Jiang Xiqing, you are slandering me. Demon King Han Guang is a great demon with the bloodline of the heaven-devouring python. How could he be related to Dongfang Jia?" "Haha, so you were also tricked." Jiang Tian saw this and laughed instead. Before, he originally thought that Purple Marquis and Dongfang Jia were working together selflessly to fight for their ideals. Like Dongfang Jia, they hated the feudal system to the core. Even after Dongfang Jia established a new dynasty, they would hand over their land and authority, leaving behind only a title or a minister. They would no longer be hereditary. But now, it seemed that Purple Marquis was also deceived and played by Dongfang Jia. But on second thought, it was no wonder. Purple Marquis had always been an extremely selfish person. Hundreds of years ago, Purple Marquis hated the county system and was the vanguard to overthrow the late emperor, Dongfang Jia. Even now he was still thinking about taking over his land and becoming the emperor. How could he change his attitude so quickly and completely, and become a supporter of the county system? "What do you mean by tricked? You are just spouting nonsense." Purple Marquis was shocked, but he forced himself to calm down. Thoughts flashed through his mind like lightning. Han Guang was Dongfang Jia, and he had definitely been tricked. No wonder every time he met Han Guang, he felt a sense of familiarity from Han Guang's actions. His appearance, bloodline, cultivation methods, and even the gods and precepts that he had condensed could all be changed. However, there would always be some traces left behind in his speech and actions. But now he had no other choice. The most important thing now was to make the Marquis believe in him, kill Jiang Xiqing and the eldest princess, and then find other forces such as the giants of the hidden sects, to help him overthrow the imperial court and even the pantheon of demons. He swept his gaze over the numerous vassals and army formations, a look of boundless determination appearing on his face as he waved his hand and shouted. He waved his hand and said, "Don't listen to this man's lies and shake the morale of the army. Now that we've joined forces, we're only a step away from success and recognition. After we kill this bastard and demoness Ink Feather, we'll directly attack the enemy's den and breach the imperial capital. We'll kill the incapable ruler and fulfill our lofty aspirations to save all living beings in the world and establish peace for all ages." "Alas! Since I said so, of course I have evidence." Jiang Tian smiled and released Niu Ben's god unhurriedly. He said with a smile, "Niu Ben's god is one of the 4 guardians of the pantheon of demons. Is that enough?" This is Niu Ben's god." "What? God Niu Ben was killed by him, and only his god is left. Isn't he too strong?" The whole place was filled with gasps. At this moment, the faces of the vassals changed wildly. They were shocked and couldn't believe it. A celestial device that could break through space, arrive in an instant, and realize long-distance surveillance consumed a lot of high-grade heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Moreover, it required extremely skilled craftsmen to carve mysterious formation patterns. It wasn't something that anyone could control. In the Saint Origin world, generally speaking, only the top holy clans or holy lands or empires had it. The vassal families didn't have this kind of surveillance celestial device. Even the fragrant medicine house didn't have it. Therefore, Landlord Wang could only get the news from the disciple, who was a guest in the Eastern Canyon Duke Mansion. Eastern Lu and Crown Prince Dongfang Ding already knew about the battle on Hundred Flowers Peak. However, to avoid alerting the enemy, they naturally sealed the outside world. In short, the vassals had no idea about the details of the battle. Before this, they thought that Jiang Tian had escaped by luck. They didn't expect that he had killed God Niu Ben. This made them feel incredulous. They looked at Jiang Tian in shock and fear, as if they were dreaming. "Mr. Zhang's strength is actually so terrifying? You should know that he used divine powers similar to Qi and to Trinity. It was only a doppelganger that went to Hundred Flowers Peak. Not only them but even Princess Mou's delicate body trembled slightly. Her face was full of shock. Her beautiful eyes were wide open as she looked at Jiang Tian's tall and dignified back with extraordinary splendor. It was as if she had met Jiang Tian for the first time. Although she knew that Jiang Tian's strength was extraordinary, she didn't expect Jiang Tian's strength to be so strong. He killed God Niu Ben with only a doppelganger. Chapter 1951. Sir God Niu Ben was famous, and had reached the peak of the soul formation stage. His strength was comparable to a half-sage, and was close to that of a void-return saint. Even in the entire Saint Origin world, he was a giant. With only a doppelganger he killed Sir God Niu Ben of Monster Clan. This is too unbelievable. As for Lin Yang and Dongfang Ying, they were shocked to the extreme. They were dumbfounded and could not say a word. Master, Xiaoniu thanks Mr. Jiang for not killing me. Niu Pai God kowtowed in front of Jiang Tian, and shivered as he kowtowed on the ground. Don't talk nonsense. Tell them the truth. Jiang Tian was calm and at ease as he accepted the bow of the defeated opponent. Yes, master. Xiaoniu, I'll do it. Like an old eunuch facing a majestic emperor, Sir God Niu Ben bowed again and again in fear and trepidation. Only then did he dare to stand up. However, in front of the feudal lords, Sir God Niu Ben was arrogant and domineering to the extreme. I can testify that Demon King Hanguang is Dongfang Jie. Don't be stubborn and refuse to realize your error. Put down your weapons immediately, disperse the army formation, and abandon the darkness for the light. Do I have to say it again? So we've been fooled. When the feudal lords heard this, they were almost convinced. Their faces were ashen and their morale was low. Among the feudal lords, only Marquis Shanshui was unwilling to accept this. After all, he had lost his fief to Lin Hanqing. Now he could only fight to the end to have a chance of survival. Besides, he was not afraid of anything. He shouted boldly, Niu Ben, if you say so, then so be it. Your god was captured by Jiang Xiqing. Naturally, you will listen to him. Whatever he tells you to say, you will say it. It's not credible at all. Damn you, my spit is a nail. Why would I lie? How dare you slander me? Believe it or not, I will trample you to death with my hoof. Hearing this, Niu Ben's god flew into a rage, and vast magic power surged. Niu Ben, prove it to them. If you can't prove it, what's the use of having you? I'll kill you now. Jiang Tian's face was calm but his eyes were cold. Niu Ben's god was shivering in fear. It flickered as if it was about to collapse. Suddenly, he slapped his head and took out a strand of hair from his storage pouch. He bowed and flattered. This is a strand of hair from the demon emperor Han Guang that I collected. It contains a strand of his blood and spirit. With the blood rebirth technique and the body creation technique, I can deduce the changes in Han Guang's appearance throughout his life. Whether or not he is the emperor of the fallen kingdom, Dongfang Jie, will be obvious at a glance. In the next moment, a look of fear and uneasiness appeared on his face. He said in shame, It's just that my magic power is low. I need at least half a year to be able to simulate his appearance when he reaches adulthood. Let me do it. Jiang Tian smiled faintly and pointed at the sky. Vast wood elemental True Yuan burst out from Jiang Tian's fingertips like a torrent of green light spots, forming a mysterious talisman. The talisman was made up of countless tiny and mysterious runes. Each tiny rune was like a small world when heaven and earth were created. It was full of vitality and could nurture everything. The green talisman quickly wrapped around the strand of hair and poured into it. Bang! In the hair, a drop of blood was extracted and appeared in the air. It floated like a crystal-clear agate. In the blink of an eye, a vast amount of life essence was poured into it. The drop of blood quickly turned into an embryo the size of a soybean. It kept expanding, and the spine, hands and feet, facial features, and hair gradually became clear. It was growing into a human. Next, scenes appeared in front of everyone's eyes. It was both real and illusory. The blood in the hair was nourished and shaped into a human body. The memory of Dongfang Jie in his soul was also awakened. The baby grew up quickly. He first became a child with a pure gaze, but with the majesty of an emperor. Then he became a teenager, standing quietly with a gloomy face. He seemed to have seen the feudal lords of the empire meddling in politics, ignoring the royal family, oppressing the common people, annexing the land, and making the people miserable. Then he became a teenager, sometimes with a vigorous aura, traveling the pugilistic world, visiting the common people and practicing in the sections. Sometimes he was pale and thin, reading ancient books in the Taisher Pavilion, and debating with loyal advisors. When he became the crown prince, he was high-spirited, looking for a teacher, forming his own cabinet, proposing to abolish the feudal system and promote the system of counties. His eyes burned with madness. In almost 10 seconds, the past appeared. The former emperor Dongfang, who was now the demon emperor, Han Guang's life, which was full of ups and downs, appeared in front of everyone's eyes. In the blink of an eye, 500 years had passed. This was a lonely and crazy life. This was a lonely and cruel life. This Han Guang is really Dongfang. Some of the feudal lords murmured, their faces full of despair. We have been used. Even the Marquis of Shanshui was dumbfounded. His heart fell into the abyss. His fighting spirit and hot blood cooled faster than cow dung in winter. Dongfang's plan was to use the Marquis of Purple Robe to provoke the inherent conflict between the feudal lords and the royal family. Then, with the pantheon of demons and the power accumulated over hundreds of years, he would come back and crush Dongfang Lu and all the feudal lords who rebelled against him in the past to avenge them. He had never thought of supporting the Marquis of Purple Robe to become the emperor. He still wanted to promote the system of counties in the empire. All the feudal lords would not even be given idle titles, and would be executed. He would build a country where the human race and the demon race were equal, and the demon race was even higher than the human race. The human race would worship the mighty demon race. The pantheon of demons would be the pope that was higher than the imperial power. Dongfang Jie would be the highest god. Thank goodness fellow cultivator Jiang reminded us. Otherwise, wouldn't we have been used by Dongfang Jie? Not only would we have done all the work for him, we would have died in the end. Fellow cultivator Jiang not only saved us, but also the entire empire. Once the civil war broke out, I'm afraid millions of cultivators would die an unnatural death. The lives of mortals without cultivation would be as cheap as dogs. Starving bodies would be everywhere, bones would be piled up, and the people would be miserable. It would be difficult to recover in hundreds of years. How can the Eastern Empire stand in the world? The key is that the Black Moon Empire and other neighboring countries in the south were originally eyeing the Eastern Empire covetously, trying to encroach on it. If our civil war broke out, wouldn't it give them a chance to take advantage of it? They wouldn't give you time to recover at all. Instead, they would take advantage of your internal strife to defeat you and divide you up. From then on, the Eastern Empire would be destroyed. We must abandon the darkness for the light and rely on Mr. Jiang. Mr. Jiang could even kill the divine Lord Niu Pai, let alone the Marquis of Purple Robe. Yes, under Mr. Jiang's leadership, the Eastern Empire will definitely prosper and achieve a great recovery and resurgence. We must follow closely. In the midst of the discussion, the 5 feudal lords automatically moved away from the Marquis of Purple Robe and approached Jiang Tian. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.